Good evening, Runeterra players. This is the Lancer Standard Format number 6. With me today, I have Kai. Welcome back, Kai. How you doing?
Hello. It's good to be back after a couple of weeks of absence, just in between some life complications here and there. But super glad to be back to casting this all over again. Thanks for inviting me as well.
Of course, always. I have missed you greatly. gotta have our stats and all that hubbub.
Of
Now,
course, of
check it out.
course.
It's actually been a while since you have been on here, and a lot has kind of like changed and also not changed. So I know when
hmm
we initially kind of like began, I want to say, I guess, this expansion, Fizz, Samira, and Karma Set were at the top, and it seems like they are still even at the top, even despite some nerfs. Mind you, Fizz Samira did end up having kind of a deck shift, going away from the elusives beatdown that comes with Shelly, and instead diving into the plunder. What do you think about the two decks and the differentials between them?
Like in terms of the different iterations of Fizz Samira and how they operate now,
Hmm.
I I'm definitely more of a fan of the plunder combo personally. If I were to take, facing one or the other, because I feel that Fizz Samira, in its design and in the way that Samira's cards are designed, specifically with the follower set that came out along with her, which we generally don't see because a bit too expensive for the deck, but that's besides the point. The true idea and identity of the deck has always been to try and go for these massive plunder combos. And so being able to lean into that more fully, albeit with Fizz, which is a whole nother can of worms to get into, but to be able to lean more fully into that plunder combo feels like it's what the deck was always meant to be. And so I'm very happy to see this new iteration, this kind of transformation of the deck come through. Albeit the can of worms I will open now is that Fizz Samira has also been a deck that has been a top tier deck ever since it was revealed in the public testing grounds, or
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
closed beta test kind of thing. So we knew that this was strong when it first came out, and then we got one nerf, and then we got a second nerf that actually came out this week. And I'm wondering, with this nerfs that we've had, is there any sort of change that you can see that can be coming to this deck, or will it be just as strong as always?
It's interesting to see like the nerf that they chose rather than changing any cost or anything like that. What they did decide to do was now the challenger on Samira's flare can only go on Samira. So now you're more inclined to buff Samira, whether it be with All Out or any other spells that could be available to kind of go in and pick off a unit, which kind of fits with the archetype. Like, this is Samira, she wants to go in. She's a 2/2, so she's like, F it, I'm going in. Like, it's all about the flare. I don't care if the unit's bigger than me. So it fits thematically. But in terms of like what decks it's gonna affect, I think one of the bigger ones that we're gonna see is probably Pantheon Samira. I know that was
Hmm.
really taking advantage of the challenger, especially on the dragon, the faded dragon unit. And I'm wondering if it's really gonna affect anything else, because I think in terms of, let's maybe go a little bit more aggro side in terms of Samira Jinx. You could use the challenger, especially to drag a unit away if you wanted to get some more blockers in. But I know notably sometimes the pings are worth more. You don't necessarily need to drag anything, given that you already have choppers and other units that can do that. So I don't know. It's gonna be a really interesting change. Don't think you're gonna see it where it's being added to other units. But I mean, who knows? I think Samira is still strong. I wouldn't be surprised
hmm
in like the internal rank we see her and Akshan being used often.
Oh yeah.
We'll really just have to see.
Yeah. I remember when we saw the new card come out for this. We're waiting for our game, by the way, to load up. We're trying to find one to spectate. We're going to be watching Crockett against Shin 01. So thank you all so much for your patience on that. And bringing up the Samira Action versus the Samira Pantheon debate, depending on what deck you want to go for there specifically. I mean, there are a lot of flavors of Samira, right? Like, that's what I have written on my
Hmm.
paper here is the many flavors of Samira decks and what they
So
enable.
many.
And even though like Samira has been really modular into a lot of these different strategies, it's kind of cool to see how she's allowed to enable a bunch of deck archetypes. Now, when it came to Pantheon Samira, with this most recent patch, did also receive a new card in the Sacrificial Scholar. It is a 2
Mm.
mana 1/2 with Last Breath that has, and faded, that has the text of when I die, create copies of the first three spells that you played on me, excuse me.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
so
bad.
before I saw the Samira nerf, I saw this card and I thought, whoa, so that means that you can put Flare Challenger onto this unit, get it faded. At some point, it's going to need to be answered or killed in a way. And then once it's killed, you get Flare back again. So I think that with Pantheon Samira not having access to that same level of power, to give it to this unit that actually wants to die, to create more spells in your hand for free, with it already being a pretty decent unit inside of Pantheon Shell,
Yeah.
it feels like a nerf, a good nerf, but only for that deck specifically. You look at Samira Seraphine, Samira Jinx, Samira Fizz. There was someone in another Discord server that I saw that was playing Samira Sejuani, to give more of those late game kind of plunder burn effects and stuff. So while it does nerf the potential of those kind of targeted abilities and nerfs the potential of trying to pull those things in, like you said, the cost of anything wasn't nerfed. The speed of these cards wasn't nerfed, or the way that they're propagated. For example, the nerf that I would have liked to see was that Samira only creates a flare on strike, not on summon, which would have made it a lot slower to play, right? And with all those card changes, or with the lack of that kind of change, it only feels like Samira Pantheon is the only deck that actually got affected by that nerf, and it's still a strong card. Like, Riot has tried to dance around nerfing this card specifically for a very long time now, and it has just been like, yeah, but there are still 7 other flavors of Samira that have been doing so incredibly well in the meta at this moment.
Yeah, because we even have Seraphine, right? It's like a whole control deck that's playing Samira, and you've even seen Broadman with it. I was like, first off, why are you here? Well, Samira's like, I'm strong, I'm here, I'm everywhere. Basically, you could call me LeBlanc 2.0. I'm gonna take our cast raise. I am everywhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, shoot, I'm really wondering how Samira is gonna fare in Eternal, right? Because now suddenly we have access to a lot more control tools that we normally do, along with the updated ones. Like, I'm most excited to bring back Anivia. We have a discounted Withering Whale now from 5 to 4. I saw that, I was like, oh, what? These aggro decks are not gonna know what to hit them. Oh man, I'm definitely excited to like really bring back and play some of the old school controls. Like even Field Rush, I'm sure there's a lot of Field Rush players that are like, oh yes, I got this back. But more notably, I know for sure we're definitely gonna see Trundle set. I know that's probably definitely a strong deck that's going to be around, and I know it works out specifically given the way that Trundle's Pillar works, and that was probably one of the reasons why they ended up rotating him with the introduction of Zed.
Yeah, Trundle's Pillar. Before rotation was fully announced, people saw that card, the Old Timer, which I don't know if a whole lot of people know about the card, but it says that I think. Now I'm not sure if I even know it, but the card says that if you have played 12 plus mana this round, just recall all enemies on the board. So you play Ice Pillar into Old Timer and recall your enemy's board, and then have this massive open swing, which is a possible way for you to combo into these sort of late game strategies with Trundle set, which will be a interesting angle to see how those things work out. And previously, when you saw Freljord with Ionia, you thought like, oh, maybe they're doing Feel the Mina, but even then, Freljord Ionia was never really a combination that felt like it did a whole lot, because
right, it did. Ionia, like it had its options, but like you're right, it didn't feel like it did too much.
Yeah. Well, because you think of Ionia, right? Ionia stalls it out. Freljord likes to stall out, but then neither of them are particularly potent at finishing games. You need something else like the Feel the Rush, which is a Freljordian card, sure. But then you don't have that kind of control like Shadow Isles is just straight up remove these units and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's all guesswork for what Eternal's going to bring. Today, we're going to be bringing you a standard tournament, finally getting into a game here, of Croc AI against SS Shin. What's team is SS? There's a whole bunch of teams that have popped up that
I'm not 100% sure. I think we do have a few SS. I actually see quite a few. SS Crazy, SS Noir, SS Danwin. They're out there and they're out about. They have some strong players on their lineup. I definitely am interested to see what their full name is and maybe what their full roster is. In this case, SS Shin versus Croc AI, we're seeing the classic control deck versus Demacia. We just spoke about this earlier. Tell me, my understanding when it comes to Demacia mid range, it tends to do well into control, especially if it's able to get its units and its big statted ones, because we've seen elites really take down control, especially when they have the full board. But in terms of Shen Demacia, I think maybe you don't really go as wide as elites as early, But regardless of that fact, you do have access to deny, and a deck like Pilto, the Heimerdinger Jace are playing really large spells like Vengeance. So to be able to just deny an entire Vengeance on a unit, I know is sometimes really big.
Yeah, burning Vengeance on a unit in any sort of Demacia shell feels pretty bad because they're low cost, they're just beefy, they're not hitting you with Overwhelm or Elusive. They just happen to take up so much space on board that they're very, very tough to deal with overall. And then, of course, you have this issue, deny. You can't play anything because we're going to deny your spells. You can't kill my units because I'm going to put barriers on them. There are so many, in the Shen package specifically, there are so many defensive tools that are available to them that you really can't. You have to play with the mindset of if they have it, they have it. You have to force out answers out of your opponent. Otherwise, longer that the game goes on, the further that you get into a match, they're going to be drawing more of those options. They're going to be drawing more of those moral support, Spirit's Refuge, deny, single combat even to try and trade a unit out. And here's just going to be another deny, most likely, as Croc AI gets a Soul Harvest thrown in his Shen. He's considering not even maybe using it, but... Oh, well, we will use the deny. Oh,
okay. Decides not to. I can see you might want to deny a bigger spell later on. Right now, you have 2 units. You've denied one of the biggest spells for your opponent, which was that production surge. There's no telling what kind of unit that could have brought out. It could have brought out multiple units. It could have brought out the elusive unit. And off the rip, 3 elusives is pretty huge. Here we go. Vengeance onto the Shen. There's the deny.
Top decked as well, and there's the deny, like you said, for the larger spell. Really want to make sure we have the second one sticking. And that's the power of Kinko Student and Shen. Now this board has, while it was knocked down to very little because of the Shadow Isles control spells, is now brought back up. Another Vengeance is found thanks to Reggie.
There we go.
So,
all right, just production surge.
Do you have it?
Now, here's the thing I want to know, and I think this is a kind of a curse between all of the Demacia lists that aren't running Noxus, right? You don't really have over-the-top damage, right? It's whatever you're swinging with is what you're swinging with. You don't, with a deck like the Demacia Ionia, you don't have access to Overwhelm. And that's one of the, if I want to say one of the main keywords in the game that allows you to simply just end the game. Wow, we just burnt all that mana. Decided not even to swing and burn all of that. That was huge.
Shin trying to see if they can pull any more mana out of the hand of the Shen J4 player, but it's not working out. Now, there is another Vengeance being thrown because we know that 2 denies have been used, and that's all the denies actually in Croc AI's deck. I just pulled up the list here. So no more denies available to get this Shen consistently on board, which is a great thing for Shin because that is a huge stabilizing moment for them now. Even though there is that rally in the Relentless Pursuit in hand, there's not a whole lot else for Croc AI now. There's Albus Ferris on board, but suddenly you have a handful of spells and nothing with which to block most of this stack.
Albus Ferris is going to deal 8 damage. Yeah, we had to. Exactly. We had to do this.
Oh, wow.
We can't let Albus Ferris swing. That's a whole 8 damage. But if you're going to take my unit out, I'm going to take yours out. Oh, single combat.
It's just a war of attrition at this point. Tick Handler buffing up the whole board. Only 1 fearsome blocker for Croc AI. Now, this isn't lethal. You can still block things. You still have Spirit's Refuge with which to use on the Petricite Broadwing, and then the Kinko Student gets it as a result. So, not really swinging for the damage necessary to push Croc AI out of the competition here, but it is enough to force them down to 1 card in hand. And let me tell you right now, that rally, it's not doing a whole lot with this board.
Another Spirit's Refuge.
Huge Spirit's Refuge. Now, this is the bait of all time. Spirit's Refuge onto the Petricite Broadwing to get the barrier onto the Kinko Student. And
I like that we ended up blocking with the tough unit to make sure that it didn't get traded in. But this Jace level up though, like Jace is leveling up. We get to get Albus Ferris again next round.
Interesting use of tech.
Oh, the draw. And that's the thing, right? Every time, even with elites, we see issues when it comes to gas. You spend your cards, you have all your units on board, but at some point you just simply do not have the draw power. Now in this deck, I know with Ionia specifically, you can sometimes run the Fox. Kai, what is the Fox called? What does
I'm thinking Astral Fox, but I know that's not right. You're thinking Sign-In. There you go.
Yes, there we go. The Sign-In. I know
Yeah.
Sign-In is usually ran. I think in this particular deck we have it as only a 1-of Sign-In 1,000 tears, which allows us to draw 2. And other than that, I don't think there's any other draw. And there we go. We see the GG. Croc AI is going to go down until we get to go with
really intelligent defensive play from Shin. It's very easy to look at those wide Demacia boards and the Shen on board and panic and think like, oh, I need to answer this immediately. But knowing what your opponent's deck has in the capabilities in terms of Ionia and just being like, okay, if I keep up with them in board width, they don't have overwhelm, they don't really have a way of consistently hitting me in the face. I can go ahead and stave things off a little bit for a little while here. Even in terms of, there's like no elusive, it's just we're gonna beat your face in with big units. That's what the deck is.
Yeah, overall. It is exactly. Like I need the Masia deck. Now look at this. Right now we have this Kai. This has been my favorite deck. Like in terms of rank of what I've been playing in rank. Alawi J4. I was playing it in Path of Champions, absolutely loving it. I ended up bringing it to rank. I was like, okay, this is fun. I could Alawi gets big. I smack you. You're dead.
Yeah, if Cataclysm, get that overwhelm
the
damage
Cataclysm, oh my god, the Cataclysm just feels so good in this deck.
Incredible stuff. Croc-AI losing an action early to a heavy metal, by the way.
That always hurts, especially when we have the equipment in hand.
Even if we had the equipment in hand, heavy metal would have destroyed it and killed the action.
Oh, true. That is how heavy metal works. Damn. Really great counter card.
Incredible. Shadowblade Fanatic. I mean, you get 2 units out on board here. Patricide Broadwing now has Challenger in hand and available.
Okay. Only thing is we don't have a lot of spawns going for us right now.
None. We can't spawn actually. Now that I'm looking at our hand.
Either go a little bit wider, play our unit. We can play. We can even draw. We can draw 2 with Noctiboros. We can even go with a strike spell if we really want to. But I think that's probably the least favorite out of all the options. Open swing, okay. Thinking about it.
Awkward attack for Shin though. Without those spawns, the Alawi isn't hitting for a whole lot of damage, and then you're negatively trading a Petricide Broadwing into the Shadowblade Fanatic to then try and guarantee a little bit more damage over top. But that is a 2-for-1 trade, I guess. I mean, Alawi hits for 5, so it is a lot of damage, but Quicksand is also available, so we could be hitting for even less right now. Just because of that.
If the Quicksand is used now, it's definitely going to be pretty strong. I know we probably went with this route because we want to keep that form up, and in this case, we are going to be able to use it to save Alawi.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Well, I think Alawi's going to be on 1, if I'm not mistaken. 5, 6, she's going to go to 8. No, 2.
I don't know why my brain is not able to keep up with basic math, but I'll take your word for it.
I hope my word is right, because I'll be real. Sometimes the math is not math and I'm not math.
We know that Alawi lives.
There we go.
Okay,
she lives.
Okay, you're right. You're right.
Okay. Quick math.
Quick math. I thought it was 1 for a second, and I was gonna hold my peace until I could math it out, and then the subtraction just failed me. I don't know why. I've been doing that for years. But here we are.
These were some really good picks. I know for sure, like personally, I would have loved it if Challenger comes up. Of course, you don't really have the choice when you're using the Lucky Vines, but being able to get Overwhelm and another 1/1 is really good. We don't really have any good blocks here, and we're most definitely, I don't think, ever gonna block. Look at this in Croc-AI's deck. We have a Curse of the Tomb.
Oh my gosh! Wow, Curse of the Tomb plus. Let's see, is there a potential for lethal here? I'm trying to math it out. Because if you play the gem into Curse the Tomb, gem gets you to 8. Let's say that you block with blocking Badger Bear. Takes double damage, is 16, is minus 12. So just gonna take the 7. We don't care.
I think that's fine. We definitely can take 7 here, especially being at 20. We have time to kind of ramp things up. So we have other options, and we especially have J4 swinging out next turn. That's already going to go ahead and get rid of this unit.
Pulls it completely out of the way.
At some point, you just
the other problem right now is that second Shadowblade Fanatic, which
sometimes run.
We might have considered using the... Oh, well, I mean, here's J4. Alawi does die here, but she does punch in for a lot of damage, too. There's answers that are being required.
I think even J4 dies if we decide to commit the quicksand. I think it's going to get rid of the barrier.
Oh, you're quite right.
We can
get quicksand and Furious Wielder. Like this is a really good position for Croc AI.
Definitely, very much so. Yep, there it goes. All right. Oh, okay. Make a decision. Do you want a safety block? 2 champions for 1 is vicious. We simply have a lot of units in hand. We don't have any of the interaction we really needed. And we're gonna get 2 more lucky finds that we can either put on any of these units. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it put on the lifesteal unit if you really wanted to like buff it up, or just simply keep going all out with the 7-3.
I think going more all out with the 7-3 at this point in time is going to be Croc AI's best course of action. That's specifically why he chose to use the -4 only on the Jarvan and not spreading it out to the Alawi, because even though they're at 2 HP, without that Overwhelm in Alawi available, you also don't have the threat of Overwhelm into Cataclysm available. Now Shin's going to remove that unit instead of trying to save the Tentacle for a Nakake Boros, because Nakake Boros at this point in time, a little bit too slow. Needs to be played on a turn that could have gotten the Tantrum up. We just didn't have that resource ready for ourselves at that time.
Alawi draw though. We have plenty of units to spawn with. Gonna go ahead and go with Nakase Boros. Okay.
It does give the fearsome blocker in the Tentacle, so options are here, ready and waiting. But no Overwhelm for Croc AI, so we can't do this cheesy little Curse of the Tomb. I honestly think we could play double Shadow Fiend even if we wanted to. That doesn't feel great to pull that unit there, but it is necessary for preventing the level up on the Eye of Nakake Boros, or not the Eye, just Nakake Boros herself.
Yeah, and also just guaranteeing the lifesteal without having to lose the unit. Because right now that lifesteal is important. I like the fact that we didn't block because we're technically swinging wider than our opponent right now.
Yep, using the health as a resource. We know that we have the Alawi in hand. We have even the Brew Lookout in hand and available. It's going to spawn up to 5, 8. Alawi gets it to 9. Next turn, we have Nakake Boros' Tantrum. If we swing with Alawi, Cataclysm is found.
Oh, what a top deck.
That is a top deck and a half. It's going to be providing so much pressure here.
Action level up, let's go.
Action level up. And Borders is on it with that, by the way.
This is close, but I'm definitely leaning towards Alawi just simply because we have Overwhelm on our side. Mind you, like, Croc AI's units are pretty beefy. And I think maybe the only saving grace is that lifesteal. We don't have any quick attack on Shin's side, meaning that if we decide to block with the lifesteal, we are going to be healing up for 6.
Come, test yourself.
And we will have to block eventually. I think that lifesteal blocks the Tentacle, and then Alawi is blocked by possibly the Shadowblade Fanatic into a Curse of the Tomb, funny enough, to remove the Alawi from the board, so removing that threat overall. I'm getting as much lifesteal as physically possible on this round. But Shin, I feel like Shin is playing around it. I feel like Shin knows that there's the potential for this Curse of the Tomb to come through. And even though this Tentacle is going to be swinging in for 7 damage, there it is. The Obliterate also is going to remove the Eye of God off of it, so we're not going to have access to that equipment anymore. And it takes 12.
Yo,
so
12 damage heal. Oh man, I am a big fan of Curse of the Tomb. I've used to play it in my lurk decks as a one of, where sometimes you just sneak in that lethal, especially if you weren't really able to like really get too many lurks off. You just sneak it in. That was wow. That was so much healing. Basically, reset the game for Croc AI. can we recover for this? Because now that we have Varus leveled up coming on field, this is our overwhelm.
With the way that Curse of the Tomb works, it doesn't work off of the damage that your unit is doing. It's based off of the damage that your enemy's unit is taking.
Yes.
That is so interesting. Huh. Well, hey, you learn something new every day watching these high-level tournaments.
Definitely have to see the deny coming from here.
Oh, 100%.
Really?
Whoa.
You know what? Not mad about it, because we have 2 special units that we can now give overwhelmed to. Oh no, excuse me, that's Varus's blade. Never mind. Varus naturally has overwhelm. The blade, the bow just has a bunch of damage. Disregard my statement.
I understand the confusion though, because Jax's weapon gets overwhelmed when he's leveled up, but then Jax also has overwhelm at base. So it's only good if you're putting. It's only useful for that overwhelm keyword if you're putting on another unit.
Yeah, another
that was
unit.
a change that they made a little while ago. And so not seeing it on Varus, because you usually see Varus swing in with overwhelm with his weapon and just end the game anyway, and you're just not associating Varus with overwhelm because the weapon is what's really pushing the most damage for him.
Yeah.
It's a weird scenario.
Here we go. We got the treasures, the auction treasures. Ooh, we're gonna decide to draw too.
We want to take a look at our options here. Vicar and Vagabond is one of them. Gets another Warlord's Palace down. And we still have the second Shadow Fiend in hand. We have a gem. We have Varus's bow. We have Momentous Choice, which is drawn as well, including the changes to Momentous Choice, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, no, it was actually really. Now remind me. Walk me through the change. I believe it now gives +2 if you've equipped. It's no, but it's not like individual +2. It's a +2 all-in-one spell, right?
It gives +2/+0 or +0/+2, and it costs 1 less if you have equipped an ally this game.
Okay. So it's a little bit of a nerf then to Varus, wouldn't you say? Just because now you're losing that proc of the spell. Maybe not the biggest one, but definitely one that, because normally you would be able to get 2 procs, which is 2 procs on the bow.
Yeah, it's a proc to Varus. It's a proc or a nerf to Varus. It's a nerf to. I mean, I guess really just Varus. I was thinking Pantheon, but Pantheon doesn't care how many times you target in a round. It's only once per round anyway.
Yeah.
I guess if you. No one's ever thought of this card ever since its release, but Jay Medarda, right? Like Jay Medarda would get multiple targets.
Yeah.
And then so you'd get multiple procs of that card, but also nobody's thought of Jay Medarda ever since
that's
card's
such an
basic
old card. A fun fact, I believe that's if you've ever watched Arcane, I believe that is Mel's cousin, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, well, yeah.
One of the
I
characters.
think you're right.
But look at this. Like, we may have healed all the way up to 18, but we're about to take hella damage. Not only that, we don't really have a real way of dealing with the tactical, meaning that Noctiboros is gonna come out, I want to say, next round, and it's a burst speed. We can't deny it.
Yeah. I mean, focus speed. If you open attack next round, you won't be dying to the Nakagoboros' tantrum. But open attack, okay, with what board? what does Croc AI have right now? I mean, they have 9 mana with which to develop
Akshan's
right
gonna
now.
have to carry it.
Have to be Akshan and the Varus, but they're on very low mana with which to do so.
Okay,
it's
fine,
possible.
fine.
Oh, it's possible.
Okay,
1 HP
double
is
overwhelm?
such a nervy place to be in.
We got +2. Okay, I like it. Oh man. This is close. Fearsome. They all have fearsome blockers. Don't need that. Probably went with a buff. +1/+1.
This prevents the tantrum next turn. Getting this Varus to be so massive right now means that he gets Challenger. Okay, never mind. It's over.
Oh
Croc AI
man,
wins.
we're gonna drag
Croc
it.
AI wins.
We're gonna drag it. Oh, are we going to go to game 3? We dragged the tentacle. It's only at 1 HP. It can't block. It can't. Well, I guess block effectively.
Oh, but it's not going to be enough. I was going to say, like, single combat is the nuttiest hot deck for Shin here.
No.
But they have the spell shield in
Spell
hand
shield.
with which to prevent it, so it's not going to matter. Croc
No,
AI
just
punches
deny.
in for lethal.
Wow.
and that deny just sitting there in case of emergency. I guess like if there was an emergency cataclysm that was drawn last round, that would have been the time to use it there. Because being at 1 HP is close, but close is not good enough. Croc AI takes us to a very narrow game 3.
1 HP comeback from Croc. That was nutty. And you saw each player make very meticulous decisions when it came to just swinging in, being sure, okay, I need to take these cards into consideration. And they were going back and forth. We saw Croc AI go down, heal all the way back up just to go down to 1. Like any other decision would have resulted, could have possibly resulted in lethal and a loss. So right now we're gonna see a Shen J4 into a Laui J4. This is gonna be interesting. Not necessarily a mirror match per se, but it's definitely very similar. And I want to say it kind of leans towards the Shen package, right? Because you have access to all of these barriers. You can simply just say no to any of the strike spells, or even trades.
I'm of the opinion that this very much depends on if Shin can stick an Alawi on board. Because I feel that even though Croc AI does have access to barriers and all of that, like I do think that Croc AI does have the slight edge here in terms of being able to deny cataclysms and also having the same combat answers that Shin's deck has as well. If Alawi is allowed to grow to a massive enough size, it doesn't matter if you barrier, the overall damage still goes through the HP anyway. And we'll be able to finish out games a little bit faster than what Croc AI will be able to do, which is notably that weakness that we saw in the first game where Croc AI couldn't finish anything. They didn't have the overwhelm. They only had units, I guess. And that's the key difference between the two decks here.
I like it. Okay, gonna go ahead and go with a form up so we make sure we get this trade in, but we are going to answer.
Whoa.
Are we gonna do it? Are we gonna do it? Question mark? We're thinking about it.
Sacrificial single combat. This makes our block terrible. You might as well just remove the unit because you're gonna have to block that. What? Nature blesses its followers. What the hell? What is the name of this card? I only know it for the voice line.
Green Glade Caretaker. Not nature blesses followers.
That's the only thing I know is because like every time it gets buried, it's just like nature blesses its followers.
Like
nature
every single freaking time.
It's the only thing the card says. Oh, I wish it had more voice lines. It's basically a champion in this deck.
No, for sure, because it gets big really fast, especially if you have this kind of curve. It's already a 5-2 on swing. Okay, opted to let it through, not going to use the single combat, but that means that we also can't block. Like, I know we're going to want to keep this unit. I'm wondering if we decide to go for the block anyway, or just simply take 8 damage.
I think choosing to not use the single combat in the same stroke as removing the Petricite Broadwing there was indicative of not wanting to take the block. Because if we use the single combat to kill the Green Glade Caretaker, then only Shen is swinging there for 3 damage and we prevent more HP. But if Shin wants to be able to build up into getting more spawns on board, then they have to keep the Voice of the Sea on board and then have to take that calculated risk. But they have a 7-2.
Like how do you can't even swing now, right? The 3/3 dies, Alawi dies. We have 4 mana as backup, so there's already the potential Croc may have a deny. Like if you're in Shin's position, trying to think of all these options, right? Even a single combat on their side, and like even passing isn't necessarily good because we have a really big board we're looking at. Mind you, though, you know, we are. There isn't going to be too many units that are going to have barrier next round, but next round is J4. Like J4 is going to come out, which I believe is going to be a Shen level up as well. It's a tough position, a very, very tough position.
So Shin's idea there was to swing with the Alawi and the Sea's Voice and then have the single combat to take the barrier off of the Green Glade Caretaker. To then try and trade some damage in, the Overwhelm then punching in over top of the unit and trading it off. But that also sacrifices your board, and then, like you mentioned, here's J4. swinging in, punch you in the face, taking out the C's voice. Not the Alawi, funny enough, because Alawi doesn't have enough power by herself without any sort of spawn tentacles going through. Now it's just a matter of figuring out which unit you want to block. It's going to be the Shen. Taking down to 4 HP, so everything's...
Oh, and a J4 level up. Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's tough, because that's an immediate Cataclysm next turn. You basically don't get a chance. You're going to have to swing in with your J4. It's going to drag the 11-2. We do have draw, so we won't be able to draw first. I have got single combat. Oh, lifesteal barrier.
Yeah, Spirit's Refuge is so backbreaking here. This is definitely in Croc AI's favor, as I did predict at the start of the match here, just because of those barriers. They are so tough to deal with. Like, sure, you don't have the finishing capability that an Alawi deck does, but if you're able to go toe-to-toe and keep staving off the attacks of something that wants to be equally as combat heavy, you're just going to get run over at the end of the day. Single combat is burned here, though, to kill the J4, but I believe that's death anyway. It's going to be a Spirit's Refuge, so no barrier is going to be removed from the J4. And
wow, yeah, there it goes. Full board. That's a full board clear.
Yeah. That's the end of it. Really not finding the answers and the way to get it through. So congrats to Croc AI.
But definitely congrats to Croc AI. We saw how each player played that very well, like, especially in the second game when we had that 1 HP comeback. And in the third game, we really see kind of the differences between these two Demacia decks. Yes, Alawi is able to go over the top of that overwhelm and sometimes get really big and kill you even really fast. Like, I've seen some games where you're smacking someone on turn 4 or 5 for a good chunk of their HP. And then, as you had just stated, right, when you're on the opposite end of, let's say, you're on a Demacia Ionia list with Shen, you have access all of these big statted units where even other strike spells kind of don't really matter anymore. It's like, hey, go ahead, try something. Watch how quick I put a barrier on this unit. Now you're tricked. Now I am taking your unit, and it's such a tricky thing to play around, especially in that deck. And now that we have seen the decks, I'm wondering. It looks like the bans were Karma Set, which is understandable. I can see Karma Set being banned. And then the other ban was what? I want to say
list was also Karma Set.
Okay, makes sense. One of the top tier decks gets to round 10. It can really pack a punch in terms of everything going on. Has a lot of stall, has a lot of denial. Although I feel like the Demacia lists do well into it. So, like, at least for me personally, anytime I come across a Karma Set in tournament, I have the Demacia list. I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine. I'm just gonna Cataclysm to death. What's it gonna do?
Right. I think that if you're relying on, you're not playing like a Demacia heavy lineup specifically, like with Shin, they're playing the Heimer Jace and the Alawi J4 and the Karma Set. And so if you're looking at the Karma Set specifically, you're either thinking, I don't want to lose the 50-50, or I also don't want to then win with the Demacia deck and then lose the non-Demacia matchup in the Heimer Jace specifically. So seeing both players ban out Karma Set from each other is kind of funny, but it does make sense, unfortunately, in terms of strategy, even if you do have the deck that's designed to counter that. I think that really what the Demacia decks in lineups that don't want to face Demacia decks, or that are more centered around that Karma Set kind of control play style, will tend to ban Karma Set to then look for the mirror matchup or for the win over Karma Set. But that is very dependent on whom you run into, and I think in this scenario both players were not even remotely keen of going for that mirror matchup in the end of it.
It's nasty. Like, we just had last tournament we had a Karma Set matchup. Mind you, I'm not gonna lie, it actually was a bit exciting. They were spell slinging. Like, it was spell. So, like, it felt like a whole little cowboy match where they're just shooting each other on either side. It did not feel like as dead as some, may think it is. It's just like, oh, everyone's just gonna pass until turn 10. No, not at all. But even so, like, it is a tricky match to play around. You have to think about all these, like, you're playing against a match, has all your cards, has the option of denial. It's like, okay, I need to play this, then they play this, then they play this. It's a lot of thinking. Cut it out. Don't need to worry about it. I'm gonna beat you with a beat stick. Is your beat stick bigger than my beat stick? We're about to find out.
Yeah, that's kind of what the definition of Demacia really is. Like, I am the beat stick deck that will just, go wide and beat you up. I think that's even why we've seen the Team of Tristana with champion strength list come through to be so effective. Not only is it giving you that impact, which is that kind of overhead that Demacia is missing. Fun fact, there's only one card in Demacia that has Overwhelm, and it is Lux's Final Spark. There are no other cards.
You asked me that
that
question
have
a while
Overwhelm.
ago, and I was absolutely dumbfounded. I was like,
Yeah.
Overwhelm and Demacia, that does not belong there. But yeah, it's Lux's spell.
I was making a like a Jeopardy game show thing, and I was like, what is the only region that doesn't have an Overwhelm card? And I think it was Ionia doesn't have Overwhelm in it. And the only reason why it's specifically Ionia is because Lux's spell technically has Overwhelm. So it's a bit of a trick question. I think if I was asking that question in like a Jeopardy game show with friends, I would have still accepted Demacia. But point being that the Overwhelm isn't available to the region specifically. Team of Tristana has Impact, which is its own sort of pseudo Overwhelm that's always guaranteed to hit for the damage that's labeled on the tin.
Yeah.
And that's why Champion Strength is so strong, because you have a bunch of these really cheap little dinky units. Then turn 6, you just slam Champion Strength, and suddenly, that Owl Cat is now a 7/5 with Impact
Listen,
potentially if Tristana's on board, and I'm getting lethal for it, which is what happened to me on ladder the other day, and I was a little miffed by it. I was like, yeah, I'm winning this matchup. Champion Strength.
It's strong.
Damn it.
Champion Strength is a strong card. You have seen so many variations. First off, Misfortune Quinn has been back on ladder. That's running Champion Strength. You have sometimes even the Shenjie 4, I've seen it. We have any of the Demacian version of Tristana running it. We have Kaisa Garen sometimes even running it. It's a strong card, and like if you're gonna run Demacia, it's like, you know what, might as well. I could make it. I could either center my deck around it, have it at a 3-of, or just have it as like a 1-of. Okay, I'm gonna throw it in there. Sure, why not? If I get it, maybe it'll work out for me, and it'll do some nice stuff. Now, as we're getting into our next match, what do you think we're gonna see towards the tournament? Right. I spoke about how my prediction is that I think Demacia is going to take over, and I think despite seeing, some of the top decks be Karma Set and Fist Mirror, I think they might potentially get run over by the Demacia list.
Yeah, and I think that's what's happening right now. I'm looking over at the potential next matchup that we're looking at, which is Croc AI against Tio Kadu. Tio Kadu is not running Karma Set or Fizz Samira. In fact, they're running Annie, Jin, Jax, Ornn, and then that Garen Kaisa with a J4 splash in it as well as their 3 decks. So this is I'm not totally familiar with what Garen Kaisa does, but I think it's just another stat stick deck.
Yeah,
Jack
I would say so.
Trying to beat up other decks as well. We've seen there was a tournament that we casted previously where we were watching a tail end of a Jax Ornn game. Opponent lost, or one unit lost all of their units on board, but they still had this like 7/6 equipment that they had buffed up over the course of the game in hand. They play down a Ruthless Raider, they play that weapon on top of it, and suddenly those stats, you realize they never really go away unless you have cards specifically designed to counter them. And in the case of Karma Set, in the case of Fizz Samira, they don't have the capabilities to deal with those kind of stats. So I think you're correct. I think that Demacia is going to run this tournament over, and especially towards the end of it now. I think it might be a bit cheating to say that Demacia is running it over because it is the most frequent region in this in this tournament right now, despite not being the highest deck. But after Karma Set and Fizz Samira, the next 3 top decks in this tournament right now are Jarvan Shen, Garen Jarvan Kaisa, Aatrox Quinn Vayne. 3 Demacia decks back to back to back, making up 16 in total between the 3, which is more than the other decks in here right now. Clearly trying to, outmuscle, I would say, or require answers out of these decks that like to be, for lack of a better word, uninteractive.
Yeah, definitely, especially with Fist Mirror, because I've seen that kind of go pretty nuts. If they get a certain kind of hand, they have 3 units that are smacking you for 10 damage on turn 3. It happened to me in a setting. I'm just like, I guess I'll die. You know what? I'll just accept that. If you got this, because what do I do? What do I do? I don't have the mana. I don't have the units. I have nothing. Now, in terms of our two opponents, what do you ban? What do you bring? I'm thinking, right, if I'm playing against any Jin, which is a very popular aggro deck. We've seen it time and time again. Did get a little bit of nerfs in terms of when rotation happened. It lost a few cards, but regardless, I think it's still up there in power. I think it can do a thing or two, and it can sometimes be incredibly fast. We have Jax Orin Beatstick, Garen Kaisa Beatstick. So it's like, hey, you either deal with the over the top, I'm pinging your Nexus kind of card, or you decide to deal with the two Beatsticks that just have enormous stats. And if your Karma set right, let's use that as an example, all we really have to deal damage with is Aftershock. And that's only 3 damage. The moment we go up 1 HP, that Aftershock is suddenly not necessarily useless, but you now need to commit way more spells than you want to onto a single unit. And then if we're going to any of the other lists, I mean, sure, maybe Shen, Jarvan, right, as we have seen already, the barriers can help out. Our units can kind of match their units. We can, grow in stats. We can maybe keep protecting our units. I would say that would probably be a deck that maybe Tio Kadu decides to ban. Don't want to have to deal with the potential of losing a trade because of a barrier. And in terms of Akshan Varus, we've seen how that deck that has a big finisher, right? Varus is able to get that overwhelm. If Akshan's able to stay on board and really get rolling, we're suddenly getting a bunch of keywords from the glaive, and we're kind of just going out of control. And even so, like we saw with Kwakaya and Shin, when Swinging Glaive was kept on our unit, we were getting stats, we were getting keywords, we were decided to stabilize. We managed to get it onto the Fearsome unit with Lifesteal, and suddenly, with a few help from another spell, it healed all the way up to full to keep the game extended. So I think in terms of bans, I want to say from Tio Kado's side, it's Gen J4. And from Croc's side, it's hard. I don't even know. What would you ban? I don't know. It's a tough choice between the 3.
I honestly, so yeah, I do agree with the Shen J4 ban away from Croc AI, because Tio Kado's lineup, if anything, does seem best prepared to beat Karma Set, and Akshan Varus does require you to have those combo things where you're going tall, but then you're not able to go wide. Annie Jin also likes to beat up on these combo lists, especially ones that are very reliant on a landmark, right? Varus Akshan is very reliant on leveling up his Warlord's Palace, and so you kind of want to wait for that combo to come alive or use resources to do that. And so then you're taking resources away from being able to deal with aggro things. And J4 Shen, yeah, the barriers and all of that. But if I'm banning away from Tio Kadu, from Croc AI's point of view, so we probably think that the J4 Shen is gone, and we're looking at these other lists right now. I honestly think we ban the Garen Kaisa. And that's because, similar to Shen J4, it's able to go wide a lot more reliably. It's able to run over our Karma Set. It's able to run over our Akshan Varus if it's able to curve out for long enough. Versus Jax Orn. Even though Jax Orn does have its highlights against control decks, the problem that I have with Jax Orn, just from my own playing experience, is that if I don't have a unit and an equipment at the same time, the deck kind of fizzles out, and you're not able to then curve up into the Orn late game finisher quite as reliably. So if you're thinking like, okay, Jax Orn is a semi-reliable deck that I might be able to beat, and Annie Jin is a deck that, while it has aggro in the early game, I have healing with Karma Set, I have healing in a fearsome attacker inside of Akshan Varus. That is a deck that I can realistically go toe-to-toe with. You ban the Garen Kaisa. That's my doctorate thesis. I'm submitting that in for my PhD in.
I like it. No,
statistics.
it makes complete sense. You're backing it up. It has logic to it. And I think more notably, Garen Kaisa is the only deck out of the 3 that is running Cataclysm, and we do have access to Scout, right? A Karma Set. We already know Karma Set does not do good into decks that are going to force them to answer to a second attack after we've kind of already spent our answers trying to deal with the first attack. Having to do it twice in a row is an ordeal. Now, as we start preparing for the next match, we are going to go on a brief break while the players get set up, and we'll do some back end things. We'll be right back. And we're back. Right now we have Tio Kadu and Croc AI. Croc AI is on Karma Set. Tio Kadu on Jin Annie. Our predictions are looking like they may have been correct, Kai.
Yeah, I think we got that right. The empirical evidence speaks for itself, and for now, while Croc AI is down to 12 HP, there is an Aftershock in hand, and plenty of ways to deal with this hand that Tio Kadu, or this deck. Wow. Let me get my terminology correct here. This board that Tio Kadu is attacking with. So I don't think Croc AI is in any danger. With a Smooth Mixologist, a stun, and everything available, they'll be plenty well equipped to handle anything that Tio Kadu is going to be throwing out here anytime soon. However,
now remind me something, Kai. I need a bit of a refresher on game mechanics. If you're swinging with a unit that has a skill, right? Let's say like Annie, and Annie is taken out of combat, does that dissipate the skill?
Here's the funny thing about that interaction is that it is not consistent.
No, I was about to say, like, I feel like there are instances in which it's not consistent.
Yeah, because I think when you have a Ziggs or a Talia, my beloved, swinging for attacks, if they're removed from the attack, their skills don't go through. But then if you put something like stun something, for example, like a Lee Sin, the Lee Sin kick still goes through because he's still on the board.
It does.
So I don't know in the case of Annie which one is right or not. And I would like to say that Annie doesn't die or Annie's skill doesn't go through, or does go through if she stays on board anyway, but we're not going to be able to see because the cat or the Noxian Fervor goes ahead and makes sure that doesn't go through. Croc AI is down to 3 HP.
3 is so scary. Now we might not have Decimate, but the one tried and true aggro card that has stayed in the game is Noxian Fervor. We did use one last turn, so we only have 2 more left in the deck. But looky here, we just drew into a Danny. Danny, for those of you who don't know, was a card that came out with the Jin Annie package. And what it does is that every time you play a skill, it pings the Nexus. So when we get that on board, we'll be able to start pinging. In this case, not sure if it's really necessary. Tio Kadu already sees, okay, there's only one Fearsome blocker. I am going wider than my opponent. What really can they do?
Well, I'm pretty sure that they can at least throw down this Clockling to look for something. The Pit Professional is the one that is picked up. Or sorry, the Karma is the one that's picked up. So we have 2 Karmas in hand and available, along with that good old concussive palm. So even with all these fearsome attackers in the House Spider and in is that House Spider? No, Precious Pet. That's the one.
Yes.
The Precious Pet and the Tibbers, even though you only have the one blocker in the Smooth Mixologist available for them, there's still the capability to be able to stun this wide board out. However, you have to be committing a few more resources here. Augmented Clockling played for another blocker. So we're not...
We need it. We need it.
Okay, is my math correct here? We block 5, we block 2, 3, 5 is 10, hits for 5, then, but Augmented Experimenter, we're not even going for Donnie here, we're removing the unit outright. Now I'm going to be...
I think that's smart, that's smart. You want to make sure you get rid of the blocker. Going to preemptively commit the stun. We don't get to swing with the 5/5 now. I like it. We're going to be low. Oh, a Noxian Forever, an Annie, a crack shot. If we're, are we going on 3? Are we going below 3? Yeah. If anything, this actually might just be death right here.
This is a very spreading out the damage. I like this. Not putting too much more into, or not trying to put too much more into the Augmented Experimenter.
Oh man, 4 damage.
But wow. Tio Kadu, off of that Augmented Experimenter, was swinging a baseball bat at a bag of cashews because they hit the nuts. That was insane. So I really stretched for that one. That was bad. Cancel the entire broadcast, please. That's terrible. Karma is played here because, of course, you have to play Karma, and you have to hope that you find some kind of healing spell here. But it doesn't even matter. Even though Annie is played, and even though we're probably going to see the Crackshot Corsair played as well, or even the Legion Saboteur, either or. Board with hits that kills you. Tio Kadu has a smoking gun in the form of that Noxian Fervor to guarantee your lethal. Croc AI, on the other hand, looks very ill-equipped to deal with this hand now. And in fact, there goes the Noxian Fervor now. I like the fact that they're using it on the tippers.
Yes, 100%. And I was gonna mention this. I had said no, oh no earlier because by playing the karma, we had dipped out of tag out. Noxian Fervor here, we would have been able to remove the tippers from getting actually hit by the Noxian Fervor. Mind you, we still would have to deal with the open swing, which is just as vicious. It's kind of like a lose-lose situation there, right? It was kind of like just checkmate on Tio Kadu's side.
Yeah, because if you play that onto tippers, I believe, well, they had 4 mana, but even so, you develop the Crackshot Corsair, and then you're just dead to board with anyway. So either way, damned if you do, damned if you don't, and Tio Kadu takes it away. Annie Jin showing that potency that it has over Karmaset. I don't think that there was a matchup that Karmaset is necessarily expecting to win. So getting that poor matchup out of the way to then go into what we surmise is Jaxorn could be a little bit more favorable. Or maybe Croc-Eye doesn't even try for that and goes to the Action Varus anyway.
Wow, looky here. It's gonna be Demacia Kaisa. Jaxorn was actually the ban.
Oh,
I wonder if we decide to go with Jaxorn because those are stats you can't remove. If you're forging an equipment, like we spoke about earlier when we were reminiscing, right? Sure, these units get removed, but guess what? I have this Bone Club, and I'm just gonna place it on another unit. Now deal with that, and you're just gonna have to consistently deal with these big statted units. I understand the ban. I would have been more inclined to ban the Demacia Kaisa simply because I don't want to deal with the threat of constant attacks, especially either with a Garen level up or even Cataclysm. But I understand it, and it makes sense.
That is quite something. Not what I expected, but yeah, if you're not equipped to deal with equipment, which is a terrible sentence in itself, we'll gloss over that real quickly. Into thinking about what Karma Set brings, and specifically what Garen Kaisa brings, right? The amount of equipment removal that you have in both of these decks is fairly limited. Trying to rack my brain right now for anything inside of, I guess you have Hex Obliterator in Karma
So
Set.
Expensive, yeah, it would be
It's
that.
so expensive though.
It's only a 1-of as well.
And if that equipment gets to be big enough before the Hex Obliterator can kill the unit that it's on as well, it doesn't make a difference. Tio Kadu it has found the Lurk unit, by the way. The one drop, the Hatchling, Xersai Hatchling, because they hit Lurk off of this attack, removing a unit as well. But I don't think Croc AI is really in too much danger here. Is going for the removal on the unit as well. Wants to make sure that Kaisa doesn't have a chance to even remotely get any sort of keywords, removing the possibilities. So
no, because there are many keywords that are pretty scary. You know, one of them being regeneration, another one being scout, another one even being sometimes I've seen tough really take it away, but I feel like tough is one of those keywords that does really well into control matchups because suddenly all of these things need that one extra push to get the damage through. In this case, we have the fearsome unit, which we can't block. We're gonna have to take this for not too bad. We're at 20. We're gonna go ahead and take a little bit of damage, and Kaisa getting a fearsome tough, I guess, isn't the worst thing in the world. Fun fact, I had saw this at some point in time. Although Kaisa, it is possible to give Kaisa lurk, because Kaisa is not a lurker, she does not get the buff anytime you lurk.
Oh, huh. So, oh yeah, that makes sense because of the way the Ripper's Bay is worded. It gives lurker to all of your units. Huh. I hadn't considered that before. A lot of new interactions found every single tournament.
Yeah, there's just so many little nuanced ones that you have to kind of really look out for. Like this, gonna go ahead and get rid of this 4-2. I'm wondering if the 4-2 over the, the 4-2 has the vulnerable because of the spell. We can't really pull the 5-3 because of that spell shield, but we definitely don't want Kaisa to be getting that spell shield, so hopefully we'll be able to take it out later. Ooh, and a quicksand comes down.
Quicksand is so brutal. You lose your Varus. You lose the strike damage off of that. We're going to play Momentous Choice as a defensive maneuver here. Still is actually able to kill the Xersai Hatchling, but that is a terrible feeling of something that you want to remove. For only 2 mana previously, for a 1 mana unit, that you then have to burn another 2 mana on a very powerful defensive spell for Croc AI. Void Abomination is found in hand, by the way. There's another card that I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah,
ever
I mean,
since
exactly.
Kai'Sa was
ever since
meta?
Nerf. Yeah, no, because when Kai'Sa initially came out, she was bonkers. She was absolutely ridiculous, and another one of the core cards that was just absolutely insane. Aside from Kai'Sa specific cards that grants her this the shield, is this Abomination, right? If I'm not mistaken, how much mana was it? Was it 6? I think it was on a curve. No,
It was 8 mana before.
8 mana. Okay.
It was nerfed to 9. I feel like that's right. I'm gonna double check my sources though, just so that I don't really spread misinformation.
Yeah, because I know that Abomination was in itself also a problem, especially given that it was able to get every single keyword in the game. Well, I mean, I should say every keyword that you've played so far.
Void Abomination. Yep, I was right.
Okay,
in patch 3.14, mana cost increased to 9 from 8, health increased to 5 from 4.
Okay.
So it had lower health, but it was also lower mana before. 5-4-5-5. Varus is leveled up in the meantime. So Croc AI very clearly making their showing off their intentions here.
This is looking good, right? We have the Varus leveled up, we have the Overwhelm, we have plenty of damage, we have not only Spell Shield, we have Deny and Frostbite to deal with the next swing. I wonder if we're gonna see Zolani. Yup, here we go, Zolani. You see many players sometimes go for the quick mint just to get that extra buff onto Varus. In this case, we're gonna go and sacrifice a unit to bring forth Zolani, which is a 7/7 Overwhelm.
Ideally not lethal. Definitely not. Not yet, at least.
Not yet.
But Tio Kadu's hand does make for a pretty awkward block. In fact, it makes for a really awkward pass too, because if Croc AI passes here and loses the attack token, of course they lose the attack, but the potency of their board is also a bit nullified. I'm trying to find out what this last card is in hand. The fact that it's not a Cataclysm as well makes it a lot more awkward than Tio Kadu.
Definitely.
So not lethal on the swing, but by golly, are we very, very close to that. And we're also threatening a lot. Overwhelm.
Gonna go down to 1 HP. Probably block with the 6/6, but even then, like the 6/6 is a unit that you want to save, because remember, Kai'Sa hasn't copied any keywords. So the only 2 keywords that we have on board right now is that Overwhelm and the Spell Shield. But mind you, we don't want to block with the 2/2 and the 3/1. That's so much damage we're taking. And we do have to take in consideration this is Varus. Varus has access to the cultist spells, such as Spell Shield, and more notably, such as Frostbite. That 5 mana Frostbite, I can guarantee it's going to come out next turn, and that would end up hitting both Kai'Sa and the 6/6.
That'd be so brutal. I wonder if Kai'Sa, I mean, taking the damage, it's not lethal. You're not dead.
You're not dead.
1 HP earlier, so it is possible for Tio Kadu to run this back. But we're still running into that problem of the fact that this Void Abomination is not 8 mana. We draw the Xerxai Hatchling off the top of the deck as well, which is Croc ends up
drawing into Furious Wielder. We get to either strike the 6/6 with Overwhelm or simply just hit Kai'Sa. There it goes, onto Kai'Sa.
No, that makes sense, right? You don't want to have that threat going through. You can block the 6/6 more reliably with Zolani, because Kai'Sa's not hitting you with her ability. So it's no longer being that damage threat on board. And you have relatively safe blocks into a lot of these things. I mean, we've been talking about how Tio Kadu is backed up against the wall, but they still have a decent board right now that they'll have to deal with. Frostbite is burnt here. There comes another Varus. It'll only Frostbite the 6/6 for now, because the other one will be absorbed by the Spell Shield, but that does mean that if another Kai'Sa is found in the near future, won't be able to take the Spell Shield. It's getting killed anyway, so it's not like it makes too much difference. And Tio Kadu sees the writing on the wall, knows that it spells their certain doom. A draw. Well, I mean, a draw for now. 1-1.
Draw for now. Oh man, we're about to get into a game 3. But like, I feel like, you know, we kind of saw what happens with the Masia decks, especially the Masia mid range that just doesn't have any draw. Because looking at the deck now, there is quite literally no draw whatsoever. Yeah, none.
Wow.
There's literally none. So whatever we get, we're pretty much playing off of top decks at that rate, compared to Akshan Varus or even Karma Set, who's like, hey, I have a draw. I'm gonna draw into my answers potentially. Right here, we already see Crocus on Karma Set decided to mulligan most of the hand away. I wouldn't be surprised if Tio Kadu does the same. This is kind of a high hand. I think we want to get some more early units out. Wouldn't be surprised if we kept Kaisa.
I'm looking at the Kaisa list as well, and it's, yeah, 0 draw. The only way that you could influence these draws at all is with the Forsaken Bakai. We do find the Xerxai Hatchling on 1, which is really good for Kaisa, because that is 2 keywords towards her level up on 1 mana, and then it becomes a good chump blocker. A Fearsome on 1 also feels really great. I don't think there are too many out there, aside from... Let's see, let me see if I can remember the 1 mana Fearsome units. You have Precious Pet,
Yes.
you have Xerxai Hatchling, and then you have Prowling Cutthroat. And I think that's all of them.
Yes. Prowling Cutthroat, Fearsome Elusive.
Yep.
I think you're right. I can't think of any other Fearsome unit. We said Bakai, right?
Yep.
Okay, we said Bakai. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's all the Fearsomes.
Precious
Precious
Pet.
Pet.
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't say Bakai. The Bakai Reaper. I forgot that one actually.
Yeah,
So
there
it's
you go.
4.
Yeah, Bakai. Mm-hmm.
I thought you were saying, like, for a second, Bakai, I was like, oh, silly elite. We don't have Fearsome on that unit.
There's actually a lot of Bakais. I should have specified.
Right.
It's technically Bakai Reaper, but I think we
Bakai
have at least
Rampagers.
we have I think like 3 or 4 Bakais now, which is cool. I really like the fact that we kind of like Runeterra has introduced this kind of lore aspect to Shurima, how Bakais kind of like Gnosis' followers. Or Gnosis followers? Yeah, Gnosis followers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here's what I like about this game so far. Croc AI is being sure to control the board, right? We had small units, we're giving them equipment. As long as the units aren't sticking, we should be a-okay to stall until round 10. And we are really seeing in Tio Kadu's hand kind of a expensive hand, right? We have 2 Kaisas, we have the Void Abomination. Next turn we will get that Kaisa down who's able to copy the Overwhelm. And I think what I really like to see is this tough, right? We haven't seen Chain Vest in a minute. And I think if any deck has been running it, it's been this deck. And I have also seen Alawi Joy 4 run it. And I think that was specifically to start countering kind of like those swaying decks that were coming up, as well as Karma Set.
Chain Vest is, I remember Chain Vest specifically. Oh, this is not good. Hex Obliterator can just remove Kaisa's options immediately. You don't get the Overwhelm, you don't get the quick attack. I mean, Kaisa
you can't even use Chain Vest on here. You need at least 6 HP. The fact that we had dip below form up mana is what hurts right here, because that would have brought us to 7.
Oh, and lose the equipment. Like that is just absolutely brutal for Tio Kadu to see, but great for Croc AI. Removing the units as they come onto board and making sure that Tio Kadu isn't able to keep a board. That is essentially what Tio Kadu likes to do, right? You want to have a wide board because that's what Demacia does. You want to have units that you can pull keywords from because that's what Kaisa does. And when Croc AI says, I'm going to Aftershock this thing, I'm going to Mystic Shot this one, and then later on I'm going to Hex Obliterator another unit, to make sure that you're never really being given those opportunities, is absolutely the right line of play. And we're seeing this matchup that typically doesn't go in Karma Set's favor, at least not on paper, or at least in my head.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm correct in saying that Demacia decks typically do make it difficult for Set Karma to handle.
I'm actually really curious to see the stats. Now that we're mentioning
pull them up.
I'm about to go for them. Kaisa level up. Here we go.
Kaisa level up. Star Guardian here.
Okay, side note, unrelated to the tournament, but I don't like that they got a new voice actor for Kaisa. I actually loved her original voice actor that is in League of Legends. And I think it for some reason that voice I feel like matches the thematic of, you know, Daughter of the Voids, her going down into the underground and being kind of abandoned and like looking for her father. Curious as to why they changed it, but I have a slight preference between the two.
I was always, I think it might have just been like scheduling concerns, because apparently the original voice actor for Kaisa in League of Legends is from South Africa.
Mm.
And then the one that they got for Legends of Runeterra to then replace her is from New Zealand, or it's the other way around. It's like one of those two nationalities and those accents that are then being represented. Now, finding that Cataclysm onto the Kai'Sa Supercharge to remove the set is a huge boon towards Tio Kadu's cause, even though we don't exactly have the capabilities with which to block or we don't have the capabilities with which to get multiple keywords for Tio Kadu. Having this Kai'Sa alone stick the damage and able to hit in for 9 damage this turn to bring Croc AI down to 7 is monumental. Don't have another. We're not able to find. Haven't been able to find another Hex Obliterator just yet. We do have a set.
Oh, Champion Strength. Okay. Combat Cook. I feel like I'd be more inclined to go with units, but I wouldn't be surprised if Champion Strength is chosen. Right, you're on 18, you can take a swing. You already know that set isn't really going to kill Kai'Sa. We're still 2 rounds away, about to be 1 round away from Karma level up. We can't remove this Kai'Sa, all we have is Aftershock. So, I mean, we can stun for days. So at least that's definitely a counter to the Champion Strength.
Can I bring out my catchphrase here? So I found some stats on Karma set against this specific Garen Jarvan Kai'Sa list. Karma set loses this matchup. It has a 38% win rate into Garen J4 Kai'Sa.
Ooh.
This goes Tio Kadu's way, statistically speaking, 62% of the time. And considering that Tio Kadu already won the earlier matchup with Annie Jin against this list, these numbers are not looking good for the Karma set side of things, but has been handled at least partially up and to this point. Void Abomination is played, though. That gives Kai'Sa the spell shield back, as well as Lurk. Like you said, Lurk doesn't allow Kai'Sa to get the increased attack, but it doesn't matter. It's a keyword. It's another point of damage towards Kai'Sa's attack.
Exactly.
That will make this so much more powerful.
Ooh, I like this Aftershock. Gotta go ahead and get rid of that spell shield. We know Kai'Sa can't get it. Mind you, these are still big units, right? This is a whole 7-7 with tough and a 6-6 with tough. We're gonna have to spend both of our stuns next round. Wouldn't be surprised if we see Karma come down. I like the fact that Croc AI isn't immediately putting Karma down, right? We want to anticipate, okay, our might put it either Cataclysm for 3 mana or even single combat. Here we go.
Scary.
Is this a proc of the obliteration? I don't think it is. Not yet, right? Oh, it is. There it goes.
It is. Yep. I believe we had full spell mana at the start of this turn, so it is exactly enough for the showstopper to come through. Goodbye, Kai'Sa. Your spell shield is no more. That tough that you have on there does not matter. That damage that you're swinging in for does not matter. Karma is online, baby. And this is going to be a absolutely devastating.
Wow. And we see it, right? We've talked about it before. All because something has a low win rate into something doesn't mean it's impossible. You just never know. Sometimes you really just have to play a bad matchup and really, think about it. In this case, we saw Croc AI dealing with some really big units, being meticulous, making sure that everything was being removed at the beginning. And now that we've reached round 10, we're not really afraid of anything. We didn't get any of our any elusive, right? That's definitely one of the keywords that you want to get onto the Void Abomination, because that's a 7-7 with elusive. What you gonna do? In this case, we're swinging wide enough. We have all the mana. We have the coins. We're about to obliterate something else.
I mean, sure, you could go for the swing for Tio Kadu because you have to try and remove or make this board as short as possible, but I don't know.
What? Oh my gosh.
My
Talk about a turn reset.
Wow.
Like, I know that I've seen it before, and like I know it's coming, but like to see it live and actually do the thing is just so bonkers. It's nuts. Like, look at that.
This is high level play, by the way. Like, Croc AI and Tio Kadu are extremely talented high elo Masters players. And so to see them bringing out their best and still just seeing Tio Kadu get, I want to say, like, blasted. Like, I'm not saying that they're any weaker or anything, but just seeing that turn reset from an equally as talented player has got to be so devastating. You're like, oh good, I'm safe for this turn, and then you're not. suddenly your opponent goes from having literally 0 mana after playing that coin to full. All 13 is available to them. They now have a board that is much wider than what yours was to begin with. You only have Form Up, you only have Quicksand in hand. There isn't a whole lot that Tio Kadu can do to stop this avalanche that is coming their way now from Croc AI, who managed to stave off this defeat so masterfully throughout this entire match.
And like and we saw Tio Kadu like try to play to the outs, making sure to always play a unit, having units on board, making sure to get the keywords, making sure to copy what is necessary for Kaisa. In this case, right, Croc AI had the answers. I wonder if there was like, I feel like specifically it was the turn in which the overwhelm unit was denied on Kaisa. I feel like that one was a pivotal turn. We were able to get that Hex Obliterator off. You see both GGs from both players. Croc AI continues. Oh wow.
Tio Kadu did have the option of using Quicksand to stave off defeat there, but in between the time that you're using Quicksand and then having to try and stumble and try to find another Kaisa or some other way to finish out the game, you're already kind of losing because you're in the one turn that you're allowed to take. Karma Set is taking 3. And you're just losing the match on the fact that you don't have the mana, you don't have the board, and you're not allowed to after Set is throwing out those showstoppers at the end of the game.
It's so strong.
But
I mean, hey,
so
that's the purpose of the deck. It's a combo deck, and they need to reach all the way to turn 10. You do have all of those turns to try to deal with it, and we've seen, many times Karma Set does get defeated by the Demacia deck or any deck that is going toe to toe with it. Technically speaking, we saw Tio Kadu beat it, right? Jin Annie rushed it down, just straight bone rushed it. And it was like Croc is throwing answers, and Tio Kadu's just like, hey, unit, hey. How you gonna deal with this one? I'm gonna keep coming at you. You better have some answers. And that's why we ended up going to a game 3. Both players playing masterfully, and we saw the bans, right? Our anticipation was that the Kaisa deck was gonna end up being banned, and then in terms of Croc AI, we saw that it was what was the third deck? Hold on, it was the J4 Shen that was banned. Yeah, Jack's
J4 Shen. We got
and
that
then
one right.
J4 Shen. Yeah, we got that one right, which makes sense. It makes complete sense. And I mean, there's many different avenues to take. So GG to both players. You guys played incredibly well. Love to see it.
Yeah. It's funny looking at Karma Set's worst matches because there's a very obvious trend that goes through here. Their worst matchup is Vayne Aatrox, followed by Galio Udyr, followed by Garen Bard, followed by Quinn Vayne Aatrox, which is, I guess, just a variant of it. And then we go down to Teemo Tristana Nar with Bilge Water, and then Garen J4 Kaisa. So barring the Bandle Swarm list with the Bilge Water, it's obvious that the weakness of this deck specifically are those go line strategies. So if you're ever looking for something on ladder specifically that does have good statistical matchups into Karma Set, at least more reliably than other decks overall, just bring a Demacia deck and you'll be able to usually win things out. But we, of course, do sometimes see those rare exceptions. And here we are looking at BlackSparrow against Gogo, a Karma Set against Evelyn Lucian. List that I...
Whoa, what is this? What is going on in this game?
I don't know what's going on in this game, but...
There is so much happening. All right, so we have... Let's see. Okay, we're on turn 9. Evelyn was going crazy, getting obliterated, but mind you, we still have elusive. I don't know which of these keywords is permanent. On the next round, we're gonna find out, but regardless, swinging in for 5 damage.
Well, these players want to get out of this match. They are trying to just
okay,
as quickly as possible.
An 8/8 with tough elusive regeneration scout challenger. How do we deal with this? We need this. We need a stun. We need an answer.
We do play the Karma.
Okay, Karma leveled. We have access to coin, so they're gonna get us 4 mana. Oh man, this is tough.
And like, what do you, if if there's a top deck of a Cataclysm from BlackSparrow, this is the end of it for Gogo. Well, we're not exactly sure what match we're in here either. And in fact, we're just going to swing with everything. We're not even going to try for the scout attack because we don't want to give the Karma any opportunity to play, let's say, a set to obliterate that Genevieve with the 8 attack on everything. It's not exactly lethal. We see some cards being played. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, stun. It had to be. It had to be. Okay, stun high note. We're going out, only taking 2. I wonder if we're gonna commit a single combat onto the Karma.
We might.
We do have to get rid of her. We cannot let her stay on board. This Karma alone, I think, it can potentially stabilize the game. Mind you, I think this 8/8, you know, having tough and elusive, we really need to recall it. We can't allow that to stay on the field. So we're gonna have to keep dealing with it. Ooh.
Wow.
Look at this. Gonna go ahead and... Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, this is just like, I think the reason why this isn't always a guaranteed matchup and a guaranteed win is because of the value that Karma Set can generate. The way that it's able to draw more cards more consistently. I like the way that you put it earlier, where you said you just kind of play what you have because you don't really have draw inside of Demacia. And so when you're running into Karma Set that can draw pretty much indefinitely with Place Your Bets even formula, if they're running that card specifically, there's just not a whole lot you can do. You just have to keep asking answers of your opponent, and the matchup is then changed based on whether that card is in hand or not. And when you have value being drawn, high note being played, Karma on board to stun out things multiple times and generate a bunch of blockers to then keep themselves at 5 HP, yeah, you're going to stave off defeat very reliably.
There you go, 4 mana. Ooh, an augmented clockling.
So that decision off. I don't know what that was.
That is an elusive blocker. At least we can block 1 scout attack, right?
Yeah. Elusive blocker.
Vorba.
No overwhelm again. We'd have to find... No, there's no way we could do that. The only way we could really...
Oh, it's a set.
Win this out.
That was what we chose.
Oh. I hate to say it, but I don't think BlackSparrow's chances are looking very good right now. And they are taking the damage here.
Top deck? I want to say Void Abomination. I think Void Abomination would do it, especially because I remember we entered in the middle of this game, so we don't know if any of the spell shooter units have been played. But if so,
it's Void Abomination would be a Shuriman card.
Oh no, it is right. Darn. Okay.
Yeah.
So Husk. We have Evelyn. No, I don't think we have really anything. No, now that I'm pulling up the deck list, I think it's really just ended up getting a Lucian. Only thing this top is Genevieve. We do have Champion Strength, so we did see a deny come out. Champion Strength might be able to do it, but even with 2 units, it's not as strong. And there it is, the recall. Sure. Unworthy Soul.
Whoa.
Now that Unworthy Soul, I believe, may have been created by Karma. Yep, Karma created that. Looking at the deck list right now. This is it. Gogo has stabilized with Karma. Managed to get an all draw. We have the set.
Why don't you sit this one out?
I'm doing some... There we go. I think that was correct. It was just a bit of a score dispute. Just clearing it up that we saw Croc AI won their match against the Garen Kaisa earlier.
No, I'm not sure. I think the cards are a little bit glitched. We're about to find out.
Okay.
Going with the pull, we did get playing the Genevieve Gav. Oh my gosh.
Pull the... Oh, I see what's happening here.
Yeah, it's a slight glitch. There we go.
We really want you to see that we have Vora and Lucian in hand. Those 2 cards specifically.
Okay, Lucian with impact. And Lucian's leveled, so that's it. Oh, and we get the rally. We get the rally. Oh, but we have... How many coins we have? We have 1 coin. Never mind. We have set.
We have a set.
Space Breaker.
Does not matter. Again, you've hit the point of the game where you cannot do anything because Karma is available online. Quite an unfortunate result, but his deck is strong for a reason.
Yeah, it's up there. And mind you, right, it's not like this was a wash at all. BlackSparrow was punching Gogo with the units and having some really crazy things. Look at this, all the Mystic shots. Wait, how many was that? 3?
It's all
so
3.
3 all double up 6? Oh my gosh.
6
There it
times 2 is
goes.
12.
A machine gun to the face. We might not be playing Ezreal Karma, but regardless, we're still gonna go ahead and kill you with all the big stick shots.
Makes me think
Wow.
as well with Eternal format coming out.
Mhm.
If we go back to Ezreal Karma again,
Ooh.
with the new cards, place your bets, tag out, all these sort of much more reliable defensive cards that have come out since Ezreal Karma was really a thing. What happens now? Is that a deck that can reliably survive in the Eternal space?
I
Or are
don't
there other things
know.
that can beat it out?
The thing
Hard
is,
to
like with
say.
Eternal, there's just so many like endless possibilities. You can literally go any avenue. Like we might see Ezreal Seraphine. I feel like Seraphine. I feel like is a definite. I can't see an Eternal format that doesn't have Seraphine like at least in top 5. But then
Right.
again, right? I've seen some players talk about how Eternal is kind of like aggro's main stage and how aggro is simply going to take over Eternal given of how strong aggro can be, right? We just got a buff to Poppy. Some people are saying Ezreal Aurelia is going to be an issue given it did technically get a buff with Crescendo. Zai, I think I think an 8 mana every time you swing with blades, I swing with it and it's elusive. But that's, mind you, that's really late game for Ezreal Aurelia because I think it's an 8 cost unit. But I'm not sure. Like I've heard some people say, you know, aggro's gonna take over. I feel like that there are a lot of control tools that are gonna come into the fray, whether it be, you know, Anivia making a comeback, or you know, Ezreal Karma, or any of the Piltover variants, any of the Freljord variants. It's hard to say, and I'm really waiting to see how the meta is gonna, you know, shake up, especially with the open. I believe the open's gonna be coming up
In
in
about
a week,
16 days, I believe.
16 days, 2 weeks.
I think that's what it says on the Runeterra
I must
client.
go, I
Yeah,
must go
next
check.
Runeterra open starts in 16 days. So,
Yeah, June 10th.
another list that I've seen being thrown around and brought back into the limelight is concurrent timelines, which was also buffed in this patch. It went back to 1 mana. So now you can have the turn 1 concurrent timelines back again into all these new cards that we've had. It might even just be the same as we've had it before, though, with timelines.
Yeah.
That's another deck that was
Timeline's
phased
fun.
out. I think I went like but back before rotation came through and everything, I played that deck and I went on some 8-game win streak with timelines in Diamond a while ago. That deck was very strong, and I think it's still
The Trundle
pretty
Kate version?
potent. I think it was Trundle. It was either Trundle Vi. I think it was Trundle Vi that I was running
Okay, Trundle Vi.
specifically.
Yeah, I know.
Just because
I've seen a
like
few.
having the control.
I know there's also a the variant with Bandle City that runs, I believe, Risu the Storm, which is a 5 cost. So you basically turn a 1/3 into a 5 cost unit, which then, you know, also ends up summoning the 7/3 unit with impact. Which is that one I've seen. It's pretty powerful. I remember seeing that for the first time in a ranked game, and I was like, "What is going on? Why are there so many big units on like turn 5 right now? I am getting beat the heck up."
That's also the one that runs Banana Blaster, which
Yeah, Banana
whenever it
Blaster.
transforms, when it
Yes,
transforms, it then takes the power of the unit it's transformed into. So potentially you can get up to 7 damage, because I think Ancient Crocolith is the highest damage unit at 4 mana with 7 attack. So you can shoot something for 7 damage on turn 4. But the reason why I especially like that deck at the time was because it was around the time that Jace Heimer and Jace Lux were very potent. And so sometimes my opponent would play Jace on turn 4, and I would remove him from the board immediately with this transform Banana Blaster. So there are options in that regard that you
the
can't do.
blaster,
It's
Banana
so
Blaster.
toxic though, man.
It's such
Oh my
a
God.
funny card. Like I'm just gonna listen.
Yeah. Has
I'm
its
just
own unique
hoping.
animation and
Yeah,
everything.
I'm hoping in Eternal that Banana Blaster isn't gonna become something of my nightmares. Like I don't want to go to sleep and then all I hear is the echo of Banana Blaster. Pew pew.
you just hear the of its
That's
sound
it.
effect that it has
Listen.
when it shoots the banana
Hopefully not.
in
But
your
I mean,
nightmares.
there's options. There's definitely options. I'm really interested to see what kind of new stuff people come up with. I really am curious about the expansion. Like, we're not gonna get it for a while, right? I think we have to go through, I want to say, all of the opens and then even possibly past worlds before we get the expansion. I'm not even sure when it's due. I want to say it should be expected in July, maybe even the end of June, but who knows? Right now, we're gonna go ahead and go into Croc AI versus ANESTHETIZE. We are playing Aatrox. I want to say Aatrox King Quinn. Let's go ahead and take a look real quick versus Karma Set. All right,
That sounds correct.
Aatrox Vayne, no Quinn. Gotcha. Here we go.
Well, like I said earlier, statistically the worst matchup for Karma Set, but that also all depends on how things turn out. You know, ANESTHETIZE has a, is that right? Yeah, ANESTHETIZE has a very small hand size right now against Karma Set, and it's turn 7. So while we are punching in for a lot of damage and putting a lot of pressure on our opponent, there's also the potential that this just doesn't go anywhere. So we're going to be putting the Zolani on board to guarantee the overwhelm damage, to then say, hey, you may be able to chump block something, but now I'm forcing an answer out of you early on with this Zolani overwhelm on board.
I'm wondering if we're gonna end up going for Valor, just so we can pull something on the side, or if we're gonna maybe next turn go for the not Atacon. I forget the unit. Anaka, I believe it's called. Yeah, Anaka.
We do have 2 spears.
Yeah, Anaka, it would be nice, but I know that that uses up our entire turn, and you can answer that with a swift recall, a stun. We already see that we top deck another set. That's gonna be a double stun.
2x stun is pretty good. Smooth Mixologist is played here, but we're invited to play more for ANESTHETIZE because this board isn't threatening the damage. Yeah. So we do play the Steadfast Elkin? Steadfast Elk something rather.
Yeah, Elkin.
I'm afraid. Okay, I'm good. Cool.
Okay.
If it hasn't been made known or very obvious to a lot of people, I don't play Demacia decks. I find them rather dull to play personally, and so I'm worried half the time when I'm on the cast, like, oh no, it's a Demacia deck. I don't know what this does.
Well, it's a good thing you have me because I played Demacia. I'm trying to attack someone like 3 times in a turn.
Yeah,
rally.
You're like my perfect counterpart. You rally. You know all the cards. You're on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. So it just works out perfectly.
Perfectly. Ooh, I love this catch. We're going to go ahead and save Valor, which means that we're still able to get our swing. 2 units might be stunned, but we are going to be able to take out the set if we want to. Now, I'm not sure how many coins we have. I believe that is a total of 2. So we don't have enough to use tag. No, actually, yes, we do. We can use tag out on our own unit to save set.
Man, that card being 2 mana to recall your own unit.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a nerf to it. Like it going up to 3 instead.
Mm-hmm. Think about Lightning Rush, for example, which is a 3 mana recall deal 2 to anything. And I feel like when you're creating the coin, 2 mana create a mana refill in hand basically makes that card cost 1 mana.
Yeah.
It's already very good in that regard. So I wouldn't be surprised to see at least that stealth recall. I'm going to be consuming the Scout Attack first.
I wonder if we simply just go for the full swing. Okay, we'll go for the Scout Attack. Because this is a little bit scary, right? We're on turn 10. Set is leveled up. We don't have a means of killing Set. If Karma comes down, we definitely don't have a means of killing her.
I need to stop giving these people Caster's Curse, man.
Peace begins within.
Keep saying sneaks up on you.
It really does. There are things that are, you know, certain in life: death, taxes, and Caster's Curse.
We have a common enemy.
In this scenario,
those are all so many different things. From literal death to taxes to freaking taxes. Lord, gosh, that was a trip. That was a trip. You took me on a journey with 3 words. Yeah. All right, only 1 mana, but we already know what's about to happen. Something's getting obliterated. We don't have mana to play Anaka, but we do have 5 mana to play World Ender.
We do.
Oh wait, no, because
play the spear and then assimilate.
Okay. So we have to choose. What are we choosing to obliterate? Okay, the Aatrox. I don't think it doesn't even matter. Sure, we obliterate that. But we reset our turn. Yeah, we have the recall and we have the double stun. So even with the world ender being assimilated, we're just gonna stun. We can honestly just recall it right now. We don't even have to let this go through. Deny. Okay, gonna go ahead and deny it. Keep the unit on board.
Aatrox comes, if and when Aatrox comes back down, Aatrox will generate that 5-mana world ender again. So there is that capability available for ourselves. But Croc AI having that perfect deny to make sure that anesthetize and anesthesia. It's like it's one or two syllables away from that.
Notify. Concussive palm. Do we draw that right now? We do.
Do you think that's a username that's like, yeah, my name's Anesthetize because that's what I do to my opponents. I put them out of their misery.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's kind of hard name. What is this 10-10? Look at listen. This Anaka equipment, I absolutely love it because if you're able to get the Anaka equipment onto a scout unit, this is what happens. You get a 10-10 Badger Bear, and now we have to spend a stun on that. Mind you, we are swinging wider than our opponent. I wonder if we're gonna get Solani down. Okay, we do.
No,
we're gonna go ahead and swap. We have the equipment, like we have the Darken. We just simply don't have the. I don't know if we have any time. Gonna go down to 16. We have Mystic Shot. That's gonna be 4 damage. Croc is gonna take this game.
And Anesthetize doesn't even see it coming yet. They want to try and have this board width available. They want to try and keep this 10-10 blocking Badger Bear on board. But with the Karma doubling up this Mystic Shot in hand, it's all over. Anesthetize, I'm sorry for bringing up stats. I should have never brought stats up in your presence because both times that we've seen something that should have gone the way of the Demacia deck, we've just seen it losing out to set Karma again. I think this has also been like a really good read for Croc AI, knowing that they have to remove these units early, and thankfully not running too much into the blocking Badger Bear early game, because a lot of the units that they've been able to remove from their opponents have been these 2 health, these 3 health units that can be shot with an aftershock or chump blocked or eventually taken down with another combination of cards. Now here's a deck that I haven't
what
seen
is
in a while.
this Electric Collection? Hold
Nora.
the front door. Where is it? Hold up. Let me take a look at this highriding Nora. Wow, there's a lot of 1-ofs. So we have Electric Collection out of 1-of, 3 Vengeance, Piercing Darkness, 2 Mini Morph, a 1-of a Wallop, Drop the Bomb, Shadow Out Tailstones, Pie Toss, and basically all of the portal cards with Junk Construct, the Team Maker, and Vandal, Commando, and Conchologist. So we can definitely most reliably level up Heimerdinger and Nora in this list. We can potentially go wider than our opponent. Now that we have Vandal Commando in our hand, as long as our opponent isn't able to remove it either with Challenger or a Strike Spell, we can start getting these Owlcats, and Owlcats can prove to be a real problem. Not only are they leveling up Nora, they have Spell Shield. It's a little 2-1 that you just can't really interact with if you don't have enough spells for it.
It's like the Legends of Runeterra's equivalent of a mosquito. You just like get out of here. Just swatting at them all the time. They're literally a menace. Yeah.
Ooh. I think this is the first game that we see Akshan not die when he comes down. every other game, Akshan was killed with the Swiftest. Luckily, we do have the counter for Soul Harvest. Soul Harvest being kind of like the new Culling Strike, but now in the Shadow Isles, where it's able to kill a unit with 3 or less power.
Thematically, it makes sense for the region too.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
The Culling Strike being in Noxus was just, why are you here? You know, I remember back over a year ago now, well maybe 2 years ago now, back when the Azir Irelia decks were running rampant in the format because they were just recently introduced. The most consistent way to deal with the Azir on 3 was bringing Culling Strike, but then the rest of your deck not being able to go into that control shell just felt so awful because thematically, Culling Strike doesn't really fit into Noxus. It kind of does. You have Noxus
like the flavor text made sense because it basically said Cold the weak and Noxus is all about being strong, right? So flavor text, sure, but in terms of thematically, like we saw how the developers are really looking to make Shadow Isles. This is the kill region. You are dealing with things by completely getting rid of it. While Noxus is more of, hey, we're very beefy, we're over, our keyword is overwhelm. We are going to punch through you.
And Culling the Weak makes you think of what Scorched Earth, Ravenous Flock, and Noxian Guillotine already do, where they deal damage to units that have been weakened, pushing that advantage. Whereas Culling Strike is just like, you have 3 or less power, couple ammo. Just, I don't know. I'm just happy with the Soul Harvest is what I'm trying to get at here.
Are we gonna rip the
Considering
Vengeance?
throwing the Vengeance here, we might even just rip the Mini Morph because we're worried about a Rite of Negation. Because if Vengeance is thrown here, we'll have to use all of our mana again next turn to use the Mini Morph on the Akshan. But maybe we don't even consider it. We just want to keep developing.
Like we have 2 blockers, right? Sure, we can take 5 damage, go down to 10. We can block the other students, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Croc AI to play another unit. There we go. We got Keeper of the Box. Maybe even considering playing Varus, keeping up that 4 mana. The only thing is, when you're playing against Shadow Isles or any of these really control options, you do want to make sure that you have Deny backup. Right? We've seen time and time again when you don't respect the fact that you're like your own Deny, you can sometimes get caught in the mix. Suddenly you go below Deny mana and now your unit's getting Vengeance. You're just like, well, dang, I had this Deny in my hand, but I played it, my champion without it. Here, we're gonna see the Vengeance go on the Akshan. Okay. That's gone, don't have to deal with that. I think maybe the Mini Morph on Varus might be a better option, especially when we've seen how this particular deck with the Akshan Varus variant kind of burst speed in a sense, stacks up Varus's attack damage. So as long as we're not having to deal with the spell shield, which we do have the deck, I think we should be good. If Croc AI ends up drawing into the spell shield, we're gonna have to preemptively commit that.
Yeah, preemptively committing anything against a Vandal City deck, and especially one that's allowed to run Shadow Isles in tandem, it does not feel great. To put it quite simply, Crumble is brought out here, and that's because you can play the Wrench Bot and then crumble anything that you want.
Oh, because it got buffed right a while ago. It's 4 mana now.
In this case, it'll be the Zolani. Now, Zolani goes back into hand as the Dark Bloodletters, making it one of the best equipments in the game because no other equipment has that same effect. But it does delay Croc AI pretty significantly because now you no longer have, again, that Overwhelm threat available.
Nora is currently at, I believe, let's check it out real quick.
Pop quiz for anyone in the chat or for you, Elite. What is the name of that card on the far right without looking at it?
It's the Noxus quick attack. When it gives support, it gives something quick attack. I want to say Noxian Captain?
The name is Legion Drummer. I don't know why I know that.
Damn it.
But you are right on the effect. It does have a support effect that gives quick attack to the unit it's supporting.
Legion Drummer. Okay, that makes more sense because like, it gives moral support to the troops and it's supporting the troop that it's swinging. Okay, Legion Drummer. That makes sense. Is there a Noxus Captain? I feel like there is a Captain. Captain Arika is Demacia.
Captain Farron.
Captain Farron. Okay, there you go. Captain Farron is the noble captain of Noxus. Varus level up. Here we go.
Beware those who have nothing to lose.
I always feel like Varus is, flexing level up when he's consuming all of the power. Feels like it could easily be made into meme material.
Look at this. I think do we have to deny this?
That'd be really funny if we do. I think probably I might be expecting a Vengeance.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we don't have the mana.
Okay. I would if we had the mana on Crockett decided tonight, I wouldn't have been surprised, right? Because the ping is in preparation for something. In this case, it's a mini morph.
Mm-hmm. Still have the Varus weapon, but we don't have the Overwhelm because, like we partially discovered earlier, that is on the Varus itself and not on the weapon. So, in terms of Runeterra champion weapons, I think that Varus's gets the lowest rating because at least Jax gets Overwhelmed when he levels up.
Because it can stack damage, but like I feel like that's a prerequisite, right? I feel like the other equipment doesn't necessarily have that. I mean, Kane's weapon, you have the prerequisite is that you have to swing. But in terms of Aatrox's weapons, all it has is regeneration.
Yeah. Still putting regen on the unit feels nice.
Yeah,
it's like
does.
Varus's weapon is a 0/0. if you have not stacked it at all, and then it resets itself to a 0/0.
Ooh, we're gonna look for a draw. Considering to see if we can find any options, because we're in a pickle, right? Our opponent can draw into any one of their champions, notably Varus would be more scarier, and we really need to start coming up with some answers, because right now all we have is units, and we don't have any 6-cost spells to give us more elusives. We need to be able to swing without this 5-3 blocking us.
Oh, Quietus is a great find here. It can destroy a weapon that we do not like to see, and that could potentially be the bow from Varus.
Was that Furious Wither? I think that was a Furious Wither pick.
Ooh. Yeah, you got to get the Heimerdinger off the board. It's been very consistently. I think in the past we've talked about how ANESTHETIZE figuring out that there's quick attack on this unit for support. It doesn't even, like, we saw the attack there go through. It's like, wait a minute, this thing has support.
You don't see it often.
You don't see it often. But punching in for some decent damage, getting the life steal off the unit first is a pretty good call overall. Quietus is going to be great on Varus here. Oh, but Varus' spell shield because
of yes, because of Akshan
spell.
Oh man, that was such a good pick. And I like the fact that Croc AI, because you could have chose either. I mean, no one ever really chooses it, right? It's the one that lets you summon. No, what is it? After the Warlord's Horde is either A, summon your strongest champion that's died, give everything 2/2 and well, I should say give all champions 2/2 and spell shield, and then draw to reduce the cost of everything by 2. I was gonna mention the first one where you summon a charger, which sometimes you don't choose, but I've seen it like chosen every now and then prior to the level up. But anyway, we have the 10/7 with spell shield, and next turn we have deny backup. So even if, let's say, we come across a ping, we have a ping now, so if there's any time to do it, it probably would be now before we have deny backup again. But I'm wondering, right, because we can get spell shield again off this lucky find.
That is possible. We could also top deck the Expanse's protection to reapply that spell shield. What do we find? It's gonna be
Challenger.
Challenger. Okay. Wow, that's still devastating. Because now you can pull any one of these 1 health units to then punch in over top of ANESTHETIZE's board and get in lethal that way. Don't top deck the Vengeance. Croc AI might be walking away with this one, having got the Varus down in time. And here we are.
Look at this at 13. Oh no! What? How much we have? We have a really large hand size. We're gonna have to draw. I don't think there's really anything we can draw into.
We burn a card by drawing like this. If we burn a Vengeance, that's the most insulting thing. But we don't. We wouldn't have had mana for it anyway to play the Vengeance, but can you just imagine where you play all of your mana, you play the Progress Day to try and get lethal, or to try and prevent lethal by finding something, anything to win this game with, and the Vengeance is the last card that gets burned. That would be the icing on the cake for that. But Croc AI, whom we've been following for this tournament, does take it away in a very, very commanding game too. In well, I don't know. Is that a matchup that you win? I haven't played Heimer Jason Akshan Varus in a while.
I mean, I haven't even seen like the really Heimer Nora, because remember Heimer Nora doesn't have access to some of the Piltover cards, so we couldn't even buff the tech cards, right? Because that comes from Piltover. If we're able to get the Hextech Handler and drop that down, okay, now our our robots are getting a little bit more beefier. In this case, these are more just the normal techs. They all have 1 HP. And in this case, against a deck that is running Overwhelm, that's really tough, because even despite having hungry Owlcats and even elusives, right, we're able to not only get Challenger from our lucky finds, we have access to the vulnerable, right, via Varus' spell. So we have a lot of ways on one side to control the field, and I think more notably the spell shield, right? I think something, and we saw it even with the nerfs, right, in terms of Bandle City, the Tristana decks were running what? The Bandle Gunners at the top end, which was what? A 5/5 with 3 impact and spell shield. And that's why it's one of the strongest cards in that deck, because it came naturally with spell shield. All of these control matchups, or even other matchups that kind of rely, hey, I have 1 spell that I can use to remove something, you suddenly put down this big unit, it's like, oh well, it's spell shield, I can't do anything against this. And now that it doesn't have spell shield, you actually have some way of being able to counter it, which I think is a good thing. We are now going to go ahead and go into the finals. Ooh, we got Croc AI and Impetos.
two
Kai,
very, very powerful players.
Listen, continue. I have actually I don't think I've seen Impetos' name before. I think I maybe seen it once or twice. Walk me through what you know about them.
Well, actually, the one thing I do know about Impetos was that I was looking at the Masters leaderboard earlier today, and I think Impetos is the highest ranked player in this tournament right now, being ranked number 55 in the Americas Shard overall. Unless I missed Croc AI's name in there somewhere, but I feel like I would have seen Croc AI's name. But still, I mean, both players is still extremely strong. But Impetos, despite not knowing anything about them, the one thing that I do know is that they have proven to be a ladder warrior, and they are absolutely deserving of the place that they are now. And I'm excited to see how they play in a tournament setting, because in order to get to the finals, they had to have been playing amazingly up until this point. And also, funny enough, another set of lists that is not bringing Karma Set, instead going for Caitlyn Timo, which targets those control lists, Jarvan Shen, which targets those control lists, and Jinx Mira, which just goes faster than a lot of things. Now, for the span matchup, of course, we did talk about Croc AI against Tio Kadu, but I think it might be a slightly different story here. What are you thinking about these different lineups and what we see for bans?
I really like that. No, this isn't Caitlyn Timo Vandal City. This is Caitlyn Timo Freljord, which has been a deck that I have been seeing. I don't remember if I saw a YouTube video, but I've been seeing it on ladder, right? What they're basically bringing Elixir of Iron, all of the Frostbites. Like when I say all of the Frostbites, Harsh Winds at a 2 of, Three Sisters at a 3 of, Brittle Steel 2 of. We have a lot of ways of basically, preventing our opponents from going lethal, which I think is good against some of the mid-range matchups. In terms of control, we have Elixir of Iron. I mean, Three Sisters is already a great card in itself. Being able to get Fury to North if someone's trying to shoot your Teemo. Hey, I have the Fury of the North. This Teemo is beefy. This Teemo has gone to the gym just quite a few times. Figure it out. How are you going to deal with this?
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting deck to bring. And I think it might be... we had some, I think, other individuals bring it as well. I'm trying to see. I see one Caitlyn Teemo that was bought by Trust. Trust is running it at it was actually a Shadow Isles version. So I'm really curious. Are we running, is Kate Teemo something that people are dabbling in to see if there are any other regions outside of Vandal City that work for it? Who knows? I kind of like it. In terms of like the matchup between Croc AI, like we've been following Croc AI. We have Karma Set, J4 Shen, Akshan Varus. What do you ban? Like, I think it may be the J4 Shen. I would even be inclined to get rid of Karma Set, given that it does have a lot of removal options and you can only have so many buffs. And you're not really frostbiting anything against Karma Set. Like, you're really more so going to be frostbiting maybe more of a J4 Set, or even why did I lose the deck? Or an Akshan Varus, which makes more sense, right? These big units, you frostbite them on one of their major attack turns. It's like, okay, I just bought myself an extra turn. I could probably go for lethal. No, it's interesting. I feel like I don't want to fight Caitlyn Teemo because it's like the odd warrior out, and we've seen sometimes when players, it's always that third deck, right? It's like I have deck 1, I have deck 2. What do I bring deck 3, right? What complements everything? And sometimes you just have to bring that oddball out that kind of just throws people off. We even see it, and I think one of the most notable examples is when our first world's champion, why did his name escape me?
Aragorn, or are you thinking
No, the very first one. Alan, there we go. When Alan brought the Shuffle deck to Worlds, and I think may have been the only person to bring it, and everyone was just like, nah, I'm banning that. And they let Ari Kennen through, which was one of the top tier decks at the time. So we see how sometimes that oddball all throws people off. But I don't know. To be honest, this is kind of like a loss out of me in terms of what I would ban. I believe we are about to enter into the game. We see...
Hold on, let me guess. They're going to ban Akshan Varus from Croc AI.
Okay.
One word. Spell Shield. You don't want to deal with Spell
Makes
Shield
sense.
with these lists that Impetos has. Okay, that's all I got. Hey, if we're jumping into the game, let's get into the game. I don't need to keep us here any longer.
I mean, it's hard to guess. I mean, we're about to find out right now. We do have... I see Impetos. We have a J4 Shen, and Croc AI is on Karma Set. Well,
could be right.
It looks like we might be. We're gonna see. We're gonna have to see after game 1. This is the finals match.
Croc AI with these heavy removal hands has been so lethal. I gotta stop using that phrase. Find new vocabulary. but they've been so lethal with these heavy removal hands throughout this entire tournament so far. Although Blocking Badger Bear is the card that I mentioned earlier that is able to escape that kind of removal, not able to get removed by Aftershock or Mystic Shot quite as reliably. And with the Shen on board and the Shen boat in hand, in fact, we even have the Jarvan boat in hand, which is just his dead father.
Not both the boats.
Both the boats, yeah.
Win or lose, I'm getting paid.
I know. Shen is vulnerable to a Mystic Shot here, or a Aftershock. Single combat is used, and a Mystic Shot is potentially pulled out here, but it's going to be used on the Shen instead. We have moral support to keep Shen alive, which, yep, there you
What if
go.
we're gonna see the high note committed?
Oh, possibly, yeah. We do not want these units staying on board. But a lot of mana committed to remove that Shen. And we have his boat in hand, which will be able to draw another one. And oh, hey, we have another Shen in hand anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Turn 6, so one turn away from putting in King Jarvan. But let me ask you a question. Did you end up reading the Katarina comic?
No, I did not, actually.
Okay. Spoiler alert for anyone who is watching who does not want to hear spoiler alert for lore. I'm about to talk about a really lore heavy topic. I'll give you a couple seconds while we see some units die.
Yeah. Just like...
Okay. I'm about to go into my rant. So, King Jarvan, for quite a long time, actually, in lore history has died. Like, in the timeline we're currently in, died. And not a single person understood, like, who assassinated him, because at the time of his death was the Mage Rebellion, which is where we get the game with...
Silas.
Right? That was around that whole time period. In the Katarina comic, we end up finding out that it is Katarina who kills King Jarvan, which is what ends up starting this whole ordeal with the Mage Rebellion of wondering who's killed who, you know, why Silas named the King Slayer. And he actually, truthfully, isn't the King Slayer. Really interesting thing. I like that. Now, we have Shen's boat down. For those of you who haven't really seen this card, it is a unit that gives barrier, and anytime one of your units has barrier, they have double attack. And I was actually going to mention this earlier, kind of how we talked about Ionia is one of the regions that doesn't have overwhelm. I'm pretty sure this is the reason, because they have access to double attack, and to give something a double attack unit overwhelm is kind of ridiculous. We do see it go down though with the Aftershock.
Where have I... Oh! Back with, Sivarakshan, Sivarakshan list that would run Ionia. You would run that card. This is one that I'm forgetting.
Flurry
of Fists?
Shoot. Yeah, Flurry of Fists.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then you'd give Sivir, who was leveled up, double attack, and then she would give your whole board double attack. And it was on top of Overwhelm, because you could give Overwhelm in some variant of ways in Shurima as well. Very, very dumb kind of like late game finisher thing that you could potentially do, and a real showcase of that kind of potency that keyword can have. It's not a keyword that we see very often. I think there are only, trying to think of it, there might be only 1 or 2 units that have it naturally, but otherwise you really don't see double attack very often in this game.
Gosh, look at this swing. Shen going at the swing, we get to pull out J4. We don't get the effect from King Jarvan, because the effect from J4 comes when J4 is already on the field, which is Challenger and Scout. But regardless, this is such a powerful swing, and we don't really have the answers, right? Hextech Obliterator isn't a kill card. It's a deal 6 card. 5/6, okay, not happening. 2 units with barrier, not happening. We'll have to pop something first. Shen, maybe, but even then, if we're able to give it a barrier or even buff it up or form up, that's a 2-mana answer to a 6-mana card.
And we're not committing the Hex Obliterator because we see the Shen Stand United in hand. If the Hex Obliterator is thrown, you then get to give barrier to Shen and 1 other unit, then probably buff that unit up into lethal. Because if you play, I believe if you play it correctly, Shen gets barrier first from the Stand United, and then buffs the other unit to get +3 attack, and just crunches you over the head for lethal at the end of it. So that's the reason why we weren't using Hex Obliterator there, because it would have just killed us outright by tapping underneath mana that we wouldn't have had access to. So Croc AI having to play it a little bit slower, considering the board state right now. We do have Karma coming down, so this it's a very awkward, very awkward scenario because we do have the Cataclysm, right?
My spirit is unquenchable
It's a
fire.
narrow, very narrow set of circumstances. I
And we
think
don't
that-
have the draw. It's the having that draw spell in Karma set, right? Which is place your bets. That is one of the biggest engines once Karma's on the field. Here we go, level up. We're about to see Hex Obliterator's going on to the J4. It's gonna swap, meaning that we'll have to swap with. Well, I want to say that's it's doubled. So no matter who we swap it with, it's gonna die. No, I think the 5/6. You have to form up then swap. I think.
Oh yeah, form up and swap into King J3 is probably the right call here because J3 takes 5. No, J3 would still die. So you just swap with the Badger Bear here.
Okay.
Just to get like the lowest value unit out of the way. And Karma's able to refill mana, sure, but Croc AI is down to 2 cards in hand. And yes, you can remove a unit here. But your options are not good and also bad. Like sure, you can remove Jarvan, but now you still have Impetos is able to then give the barrier to specific other units. You can pull
Wow, what a turn though. Like we're on 4 HP. We're using up all of our options that we possibly have. We got rid of the J4. We're about to get another barrier. We're definitely going to see either a Caustic Rift or a Mystic Shot. More inclined to see Caustic Rift so that we can send the Mystic Shot to face. That kills two units that we're down to just this 5/6, and our last Shen is going to be drawn.
That's a misclick.
What the form up?
I think so, right? No, never mind. I thought it was a misclick on the Shen. I forgot the doubled up there. That was my mistake. I was like, oh no.
Oh, top deck J4 versus a top deck Karma.
Top deck J4 has got to be okay.
This barrier. Oh wow. Recall.
Wow.
Formula.
I think we needed to go for the open attack there, right? Am I mistaken in
It's tough because even with the open attack doesn't do anything. We'll just block with set. Oh my god, look at this stage hand. I've seen this. I'm not sure which player in the world who has been adding that as a tech card, but they've been adding that stun just to kind of deal with, you know, these kinds of situations. But like, hey, you know, I got a stun. It's 4/2.
Dude, did we throw by not open attacking there?
I think even with the open attack, it's difficult because, mind you, Karma can still create everything at use the Karma spell at burst speed. The formula is also at burst speed, so we can draw onto all these answers.
That's right.
But and then like, even with our swing, like we can't block it the seconds to 5/6. We're not killing it.
You still pull a unit out of the way, you know, to punch you in the face with it. That's a tough call. That's
it's
a very,
really tough.
very tough call.
It's really tough. But again, we're seeing Croc AI on this Karma set list just piloting expertly, going sometimes like all the way down to 4 HP. We really see like it has the potential to stall. And that's not to say that, you know, all of these other decks just have no match against it. There are other decks beating it to submit, like really going to the end of the line. We saw Croc AI with only 2 cards left. We ended up drawing into another Karma, which then in itself created a formula that we're able to go into the rest of our hand.
J4
look here.
Shen was the ban.
Okay, so it was that and then the Caitlyn Teemo. No? Do we know? Oh, we don't know.
We don't know. Impetos is playing J4 for the second time, but Akshan Varus is available for Croc AI, and they just played Karma set, meaning that J4 Shen was banned. Didn't want the mirror matchup.
Yeah.
Didn't want to deal with it. I think. Maybe as well, if you're thinking of playing Caitlyn Teemo, you don't want J4 Shen pulling your valuable units in the form of Teemo, because they're pretty fragile, even if you have Frostbites and everything available.
Yeah.
You might not have them available all the time, and you want to be able to have a board to set up on. And so if it's banned, if that setup is no longer available to you because you're running into Cataclysm and Challenger units and that sort of thing, you're not really going to be going the distance with that deck. So yeah. I understand the ban. I would have banned Akshan Varus, but I could be wrong because Spell Shield's a problem to be running into. But here we are.
We have our curve. We have Green Glade, we have Shen, we have Badger Bear. Only 1 unit on the board. We're gonna go ahead and put the Glaive onto the 5/4. The 5/4.
I gotta say, nature really does bless its followers.
Apparently, because look at this. A whole
Cool.
dragon. I haven't seen a screeching dragon in so long. I miss dragons.
I think the last time I really saw Screeching Dragon was when I climbed for the first time ever over a year ago to Platinum using Pantheon Shyvana.
Alright,
Back in
I
those
like it.
days. It was a good time. I had a great time with that deck. But of course, like, very much a product of its time now. Like, Shyvana's nowhere to be seen. Pantheon's off in cohorts with Samira more frequently nowadays, so it's not really quite as much of an option.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we
What a turn. Ended up not only killing
low.
Shen, but also killing the Screeching Dragon. We have this unit that's a 6/3 with Overwhelm. Only 2 units on field. Mind you, we still have another Shen and another J4. Keeper of the box.
Porter, I don't know if you're aware, but we can't see Croc-AI's hand right now.
It has disappeared.
Thank you.
All right. Hold up. Can we talk about how this deny has always been in Croc's hands? And
Really
every
has.
single game they've had the deny. Insane.
I don't know, they're very patient with the resources is what I'm finding. I think Croc-AI consistently with these Karma set matchups, like sure, Demacia is a problem for Karma set, but they've won every single one of their matchups against Demacia, and consistently the reasons why they've been able to win them is because they've had these heavy removal hands, and then they've been using denies for these rally effects, a champion strength or a cataclysm along the way, to make sure that Demacia isn't allowed to do what it does, and keeping things really down low. So keeping this Riot Negation in hand is going to be great later on for a Cataclysm. It's going to be great for, I think that's really like the main thing that you're worried about here. You could even try to deny a deny if there's any sort of counterspell going on there. But man, this swing here is great.
This is a
J4
vicious
jumping
swing.
out of hand, and Croc-AI losing their entire board for it because, of course, you only have 7 HP, up to 10 now, and then back down to 6. So
And
put on
and the level up.
pretty consistently.
So even playing Varus, we have to play Varus this round because if we play it next round, it's just gonna get killed. And I don't even think we have enough OTK for it either. That's from 20 HP, and we have to worry about a barrier as well.
I mean, barrier doesn't block the overwhelm damage, but I don't think you have enough mana with which to buff this Varus up into an OTK position.
Yeah.
And if Impetos finds, well, I mean, Impetos is going to have Cataclysm available anyway, so your Varus is not going to be staying on board for very long.
We have to go for an open swing.
A Challenger is fast.
Challenger is huge.
This keyword has been winning Croc-AI games left and right. Finding that off of the lucky find means that you're able to pick a specific unit to pull out of the way. I think we might end up going for the oh no. I was so confident for a little bit there, but then I forgot the name of the shield bearer character on the side there.
All right, check this out. We decided to go to activate the Horde, and I think the reason being is because we have Quicksand. We can now reduce this J4 -4. I think even despite the -4, it goes down to 3. We use Form Up to buff it up to 2, so I think it still kills.
That it does.
Okay, going for
Right
deny.
of negation being used here. Exactly what I was thinking of. On these cataclysms, very, very lucky that Impetos hasn't found a copy of Deny here.
That's always so scary when you're versus a deck, basically a sister region that also has Deny. Ooh, went for the draw, not even this
running
special.
Deny. What am I saying? Impetos isn't running Deny in their deck. It was
At-
Croc-AI's deck that's running Deny.
No Deny, really?
No Deny. I'm pretty sure I clicked on the right
Oh
one.
shoot, you're right. Form Up, single combat, more support, space refuge. Anytime I see Ioli, I'm always expecting at least 1 or 2 denies. In this case, we really went all in on the combat tricks. I like it though. Sometimes you really don't need you don't really need a deny. You just want to kind of be able to interact during combat.
Yeah, I think it's the same concept that you have playing. Let's say that you're playing an anti-Jin aggro deck, right? And let's say that we're an Eternal. You probably don't always want to run Scorched Earth or Ravenous Flock because those cards are too slow. Like they're a little bit too combo reliant in order to make it through, because your goal really is to just aggro your opponent down. And so with, I think Impetos understands that the assignment for this J4 deck specifically is to get a lot of barriers on units and is to get a lot of those stat trades and try to have combat tricks and also remove units, with single combat being probably one of the more reliably good cards in the stack. So playing to the advantages rather than trying to slow their deck down makes complete sense to me. That is
decided to go with moral support. I like moral support because it still gives you access to Spirit Refuge if you need it. You can I believe save the J4 still. Because we have Croc can use Quicksand. There it goes.
Quicksand, but we have Spirit's Refuge in hand, so it's not gonna matter. Interestingly enough, not used on the Jarvan, or the, I mean, like the full force of it, you know. Maybe expecting like, I don't know actually, because if you do -4 on the Jarvan and they have a follow-up barrier, in this case the Spirit's Refuge, then this heals for 4 less HP. This only heals for 5.
Yeah.
Going over top, but instead, I think overwhelm damage is not going to be.
Yeah, I think what the issue is, like now that Shen's leveled up, we're still getting that 3 damage back. But even so, I think maybe going the full Quicksand on the J4 maybe a thing, since the other unit isn't in combat.
Right. Yep.
On 6 HP, our opponent's about to get the swing. We have 1 unit that can't block. Actually, we only have 1 unit. Period. I think this is I think we're about to take it. Impetos is about to take this victory right here.
This board is too wide. There's no denial in hand. The only way that they would have thrown this match is not by not open attacking here, and they very wisely decided to go for that decision. Sure, you can block the 17-2, but you're still taking 14 to the dome.
Woo!
Game
number 3. So we get to find out. Continue.
Oh, without the deny, even though Impetos didn't have the deny, they were able to get that result at the end of it. And we'll go to game number 3 and see if our predictions were correct. I really want to see if Teemo Caitlyn comes out. I want to see if
it comes out. I want to see that it's the Caitlyn Teemo. Because if it wasn't Caitlyn Teemo, then it has to, end up being the Jinx Samira. We know how strong Samira is. Caitlyn Teemo was banned. It's Jinx Samira.
Coward.
We don't get to see it. No, but I understand though, right? This is the only deck in the lineup that has Frostbite. Frostbite kind of cucks mid-range, right? You don't, because despite even getting the Shen level up, it doesn't matter. Sure, you give something barrier. I'm just gonna Frostbite it. Try again next time. In this case, we don't have to worry about that. We will have to now deal with the aggro deck. And that's exactly what we have here. We have Jinx Samira, which I believe was made by... who was it? Was it What Am I?
I'd be surprised if it was.
I want to give credit to What Am I, but nobody quote me on that. We're gonna have to search it up later. But I definitely know it was one of the top tier players that had created this deck specifically. And I've seen it. It's pretty darn fast. Like already here, we have 4 units swinging, a 1/3 that can get 1 trade, take 5 whole damage. And we already know that Croc AI, at least the Akshan Vars, like doesn't have too many units all the time. I see, at least what the habit seems to be, there's usually 2 units on a board at any given time. Sometimes you can get some real spell heavy hands. Not sure what we're gonna really do with the hand that we currently have. We can discard these 2 units. Flame Chompers.
Signature Riot Negation in hand too.
Again! Every freaking time. I like this, going for the Chompers because we want to drag a unit. These units are going to come in so handy. We just simply need to block. Block, 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 block. That's how you fight this aggro deck right here. It doesn't really have any over-the-top damage, I want to say, aside from maybe Jinx.
Yeah, Jinx and Samira Rally are very reliant on beans in this deck. And for Impetos to not find them early, in fact, throwing the Mystic Shot at the 4-2 Forsaken Victor High right now does make things pretty awkward because that's 2 damage that could have gone to face, but was instead forced to go on to another unit here. We are swinging for a fair amount of damage, but because of Croc AI's ability to find the early game units, which was exactly what needed to happen against an aggro deck specifically, there's still the issue of the fact that, yeah, once you're out of your hand, you are now just playing the top deck game. I wonder if, actually, I'm going to check something on Impetos' side, because there was a card that was recently released.
Oh, I know which one you're about to mention.
Could be in here. And it's not. Okay, I was thinking of Blowback possibly being in this deck, but
yeah,
4 mana is
it's
pretty
an interesting
expensive.
card. I think it'll probably do well in maybe Swain decks instead. Like if you want to, maybe Eternal, this people decide to go like a Swain Ezreal type beat.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now here we go. This is what happens with aggro. Kind of like on the opposite end. Maybe not even on the opposite end. We see that you run through your cards, right? We have a draw. Ooh, Augmented Experimenter is really good. Might not be able to play this round. We can play it next and possibly get some draw in. Our opponent is on 7, right? We might not be able to swing wider than them, but there are ways that we can go over top, like with Jinx. Right now, I think we really, really, really want to Jinx. But I'm not sure if time is going to allow us.
Best speedrun impression here. Or their best speedrun impression here. Of course, going for the full block, you don't want to be taking too much damage against a deck that has Jinx at its top end. Looking for the right options here. Ruthless Predator is burned to kill this Crimson Pigeon. So going for the full board trade here into potentially having, I believe we can replay the Darkened Bloodletters onto one of these Darkened Thralls to then have a lot of damage on board. But the top deck of the Augmented Experimenter means that if Croc AI doesn't open swing here for 5 damage, which they won't, because you want to have more board units on board before he go burning that attack token, that gives Impetos the perfect window of opportunity. And they also drew a great unit. Exactly 1 mana, so that they have exactly enough mana for the Augmented Experimenter, and then they can just draw 3. However, Croc AI does respond with the Varus level up, meaning that we are now getting closer to that 1 OTK potential.
We're so close to it.
And block 4 damage here, taking 8.
So 1 more turn.
1 more turn for both of these players.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. Because we can, I mean, I'm not sure if you do deny it. Gonna go ahead and throw it onto the Varus. Varus isn't necessarily gonna, I feel like you would deny this because you don't want your opponent to draw into anything. Considering it. Yep, there we go.
Does the draw not go through? If this is denied?
Nothing goes through. So we simply have a 3/3 on board. And that was good. We can't let our opponent draw into any answers, right? We know that they're looking for their final cards, that being Jinx.
Crimson Pigeon here does push damage, and a top deck of a Mystic Shot would be lethal, funny enough, if Impetos is allowed to swing here. But they surrender anyway. The deny was crazy. Was so clutch. Very, very well played by Croc AI at the very tail end of it there. They have seen it all in this tournament. We saw Heimer Nora in control. We saw the mid-range in every Demacia deck that was brought today. We saw aggro in Jinx Samira, and Croc AI deflected them all with ease. Well, not with ease. I'm sure there were some like very tense moments in some of those matches.
There was definitely some tense moments. Oh my gosh, we saw Croc AI go down to 4 HP. I think even at some point, maybe even 1 HP. I'm about to review. So much has happened in terms of Croc AI's matches. It's funny enough that I don't know if this, we ended up choosing like kind of Croc AI to like just view, you know, initially. I ended up following them all the way to the finals. Congratulations, Croc AI, for winning. I believe this is Croc AI's first win in a Runeterra tournament. They have made top 4 before, so this will be their very first win. Very proud of them. Very proud of all the players who played today. You guys bring such good Runeterra to our stream, and it's so good to watch you, y'all. I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to get an interview with Croc. I would definitely love to, if possible. Yay! Oh my gosh, finally. It's been a minute. The Croc, you can see right out in chat. Can't see it, but right now Croc is talking about how they have had a few hard games and that they survived it, and we saw it. Right, these are some of the top players playing and to be able to witness the way that they make their decisions and how patient sometimes you have to be with some of your answers, right? More notably, we saw how Crocodile made sure that they held that deny until the very last moment. So good, so good.
Some of the most clutch Riot negations, denies, all the above that I have ever seen in Legends of Runeterra. It just felt like Crocodile played it so very well, so very patiently throughout this entire tournament, and knew exactly when and where to use their resources because they were given the right opportunities to do so. So very, very well mannered showing from them, and we'll be going into an interview with them in shortly. I see them in the chat above, so we're probably just waiting for that and then drop in here. All right.
Here we go. Here we go. Croc AI. You have been in the Lancers tournaments. I'm not sure if you've been in every single one. I believe you have. You've made top 4 countless times. Finally, at the tippity top, number 1, you have fought through a slew of opponents today. Talk to me. How are you feeling about the matches that you played in this tournament today?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello.
You can hear us?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, just as you so eloquently put, I think I've played in all of them, maybe except for one. And it's been a grind to finally win one. You know, last week, Void ended up destroying me with Samira Fizz and putting a stop to my run. But this time, I think maybe because of the nerfs to Samira Fizz, I didn't face any of that deck, which I think was kind of helped me.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe people felt that the deck was not worth it compared to like other variations, you know, like Samira Jinx.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. I know that nerf definitely probably hurt the Samira decks.
Yeah, I only faced one of the finals. And aside from that, I felt like I was in a good position as long as I didn't face Void, because Void has beaten me in tournaments for like the past like 2 weeks.
Void is your kryptonite?
0-4 versus him. Yeah. I'm like 0-4 versus him. And I saw he was on my bracket. I was gonna face him for top 4. So I was scared, but he ended up losing on round 1. So I was like, okay, this is my time. This is my moment. Void lost. Now I can win a tournament.
Now I can win. My kryptonite is gone. I can finally win a tournament. Oh my gosh, I understand that. The path is clear, right? No, I've definitely been in that where I've come across a few players who's like, damn, I'm fighting you. I know we always kind of say to go head to head. Now, talk to me about your lineup. I understand that Karma Set is one of the top tier decks right now, right? We see Fist Samira at the top. We see probably most likely followed by Karma Set. You have J4 Shen and Akshan Varus, interesting enough, which I feel like is kind of like maybe the outlier. I feel like when the rotation came through and we kind of saw Akshan Varus kind of go to the side, but it seems that it's always been kind of a tournament consistent because we've seen it in many other tournaments, even some of the more official ones, like whether it be the Opens or even Worlds, right? We've seen it. I
saw the deck being played at the APAC Open. And I was looking for a third deck, and he was gonna play Karma Set and Jarvan for Shen. The idea was to be like okay into Karma Set and Samira Fizz.
Okay.
And so I was looking for a third deck, and I saw this player from APAC who went like undefeated, I think, with Akshan Varus.
Really?
So well, okay, maybe I can try this deck, and it just ended up clicking up for me. When I was screaming it to practice it, I was always winning the Samira Fizz matchup, so I felt very confident. But yeah, except versus Void. Void was the only person. I was like 6-0 on that matchup that day. Yeah, I beat everyone else on Samira Fizz except for him.
Void just living in your head rent free all this time.
Listen, we can't deny it. Void is a strong player. Y'all both are very strong players.
I like that it has access to deny, which I think is very important right now, to deny the Powder Pandemonium or like Vengeance or like any big spell. And it has like this combo element that allows you to win any game. You can win any game. If you can get Varus and get him to 20 power with, you know, like a spell sheet or right of negation backup, you can win any game, which is what I liked. Just having like that.
I believe it. We saw it. Like, I think in terms of the way that you play, like me and both Kai noticed that you're incredibly patient. when it comes to when you're using your spells. And I want to talk to you about that in terms of the 9. And with the 9, but from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you specifically are saving that or spell shield, for your big Varus open swing.
It's very similar to Karma said in that you're waiting for that round 10 moment where just go off. Anything before that doesn't matter. As long as I'm still alive, for that one moment when my Varus is big enough, anything before doesn't matter. So always saving up my spells, always taking my time, because I know that as long as I can get that one opening with my Varus when it goes to 20 plus power, I can win the game.
Talk to me about this. Hold up, before I have to look at the deck list one more time. I'm a huge fan of this. Curse of the Tomb. You use that in a match to heal all the way up, and Kai are just like, I'm back to 18. You basically reset the game.
And that saved me because I ended up going to 1 HP on the next attack by my opponent, and I was that saved me. Yeah, so it's kind of like a trick when your Varus is like very low attack for some reason, and that allows you to push it over the limit. I was playing that card, trying this like cheese Renekton deck with similar regions, and the idea is you get Renekton really big, you challenge, and you play Curse to OTK anything. And so I wanted to save, to have at least one of those cards, to have like an ace, and to always keep my opponent doubting where I'm attacking, like, hey, he could have Curse of the Power, I should be careful how I play my cards, because he could just like double the damage out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, we saw that actually. I forget which opponent, but one of your opponents was actually playing around that. Like we saw like how they were like shifting their units and deciding how they could swing. They could have swung with units that would not have died to the swing, but they were like, hold up, this is a card I got to take into consideration, and they did think about it. And we saw you that round. I believe it was versus Allow EJ4. You ended up playing it on the Decepticable to get rid of it.
Yeah. I think I got to get rid of the weapon as well because it obliterates. So as a really nice bonus. And like I said, I just needed to keep surviving until my Varus was big enough. So I will use it sometimes before Varus just to like trade up, help to get rid of a big unit just to set up for the future.
Yeah, listen, wow.
Worked out. I have one question for you specifically.
I hope the deck was cool to watch amidst all the
Yes, it was. Listen, no, the way
you're kind of on your seat. Yeah, you're kind of on your seat when I'm playing Varus because you're wondering, is he gonna die before he gets like the big swing? Because otherwise the deck's a little bit weak. So you're always waiting if my opponent is gonna be able to break through and kill me before.
Now, Kai, you have a question.
Yeah, so when it comes to these matchups for Demacia against Karma Set, every single time that I saw you running up into one of these like Karma Set versus Demacia matchups, you know that statistically across the board, any deck that brings Demacia, Karma Set typically does not do well into, and yet I believe you won every single one. Do you like, how do you do it? Like what were the cards that were going right for you in those matchups that you felt really helped carry you over this typically really bad matchup?
I think when like at the highest level of play, Karma Set is like even, I'd say, because it is very hard for your opponent to play perfectly, and most of the time they give you like a small wedge for you to get to turn 10. They don't play like optimally, so you always get this chance to play your spells in a way where you're able to survive. Especially Concussive Palm is like an MVP. I was also running the 2-drop that stuns, so it's just a mulligan for early removal, to get just trade with the units early, and for the big units just try to keep them stunned. And something that I learned from, I think, watching Drizot was that he was always able to play set on 9 and immediately get the spell that just kills the units.
Yeah,
so I was keeping that always in mind when I was playing my set on 9 or 8 to have a way to instantly flip it and be able to like turn the tide of the match. But yeah, on paper, I think Demacia is very favored, but every time I play versus any Demacia deck or even the Yordles, like Tristana and Nar, I do very well. Because I'm always keeping that in mind of, early trade, save Concussive Palm, get to 9 with your set, and you're instantly able to flip the matchup.
We've seen it. Like there were literal situations where was looking so grim for you. That's like the next open swing you were dead. But you like every time you would manage, and there was even a moment where I was like, did we end up getting the obliteration? You played the set and you had it. And from that point forward, being able to not only A, obliterate something, but B, also drag something, and set can't even die. It's two removals in one attack turn. It was
I think people need to play more wide versus the deck. Like sometimes they play their units early on without protection. And if I'm able to trade my spells for your unit, I'm happy.
Okay.
So sometimes it might be better to wait until you have like form up and stuff, so your units don't trade with my removal. Because my big weakness is if you have like a very wide board, I'm in a very bad position because all my stuff is single target. So you can just kill me there.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? You have a lot of single target stuns, a lot of single target recalls, or even just like the deck doesn't really run Caustic Griff, and I think maybe out of all of the spells in those regions, I think Caustic Griff might be one of the few AoE spells, but even then, that's a ping across the board. These Demacia decks have units that can survive pings very easily.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
Croc,
something funny talking about the Varus deck. Last week, I think you all were confused when my opponent played Power Pandemonium and I survived at 1.
Yes.
That was the Curse of the Tomb. Curse of the Tomb obliterates, and if the monkey dies like that, it doesn't count the last breath. So I was able to save 1 HP. It didn't matter, I think, because I think he had another one. But that was a really cool play from last week.
That's
oh my god, no, because me and Aravin were looking at this. We were like, what? We did our math wrong? And we're like,
you were super confused.
I could have sworn it was the last round that you had did that. I didn't realize we were like still in the same round. And then afterwards, like I believe Void talked to us about it. I was like, oh, it's the obliteration. And like right then and there, I really thought like it was gonna completely like turn the tides. Like it was, that was such a close game. It was right there. It was right there.
Yeah, it was a really good series.
And we have that recording too, so you can always go back to it. Like anyone said, "Hey,
it was really hype, I think, to see."
No, I'm sure. We'll definitely make sure to have this one up right after the tournament. We'll do a little bit of some editing. We'll post it that way you can go ahead and rewatch it. I believe that is gonna. I want to thank you so much, Croc, for not only joining the tournaments, joining the interview, making it through all this. We have seen your grind time and time again, and we are so happy to finally call you Atlantis Runeterra champion.
It was my last hurrah for the standard format because from now on it's not gonna be eternal.
Listen,
so eternal. Yeah, my last chance to play these decks. Yeah, I'm gonna have some very spicy decks for next time.
Okay, I'm excited, ready to see it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and bid you a good night, Croc. Thank you again for joining so much.
Thank you all for hosting the tournament and for casting. I know it's a tough job, so thank you very much as always.
Thank you, of course.
Have a good night. Yeah, shout out to the Wombats.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to my team. Shout out to my team.
Yeah.
There we go. Shout out to the team. Kai.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.
Yeah. Have a good night. Bye.
Kai. Wow. Listen. I'm gonna start playing these decks a little differently. I'm gonna start really being. Ooh, these matches were phenomenal. These were some really good matches.
There's some really great matches. I really like what Croc AI said about the way that really Karma Set feels even to a lot of Demacia matchups, and that's because they're able to give you that wedge, that little window of opportunity to push your advantage through and really go for that turn 10 play, not playing around removal spells, playing really aggressively and thinking I got to get units on board and everything right away. I also like the jab that he had where it was like, I don't think it was intentional, but he said at high elo, I think it's pretty even overall. I think it's reflective of the fact that a lot of the stats that we pull from, if I look over at Runeterra AR, for example, does pull from all elos, if I'm not mistaken. Like last 7 days, all ranks.
Yeah, all ranks.
Yeah, so it pulls from everything. So on paper, like, yeah, Demacia looks like it's something that's tough to deal with, but that's also because maybe it's just as a overall representation of the every piece of elo, Karma Set looks like it doesn't win those matchups because it's not able to play as carefully or as strategically as it is. 'Cause you just have to play your game differently against it, and Demacia likes to disrupt that. So great words of wisdom, and it was really cool to see that actually manifested and have physical evidence of how this different play style has to be approached when you're playing what looks like a really bad matchup on paper.
I don't know what's gonna happen. Like right now we have Eternal. So I feel like we can guarantee that this Eternal meta is going to shake things up. We're either going to see maybe a lot of old school mixed with new school. It's going to be a lot of different decks. I'm pretty sure the next Eternal tournament, which is going to be next week, y'all, we have on not even May, June. We're going to start off June with the Eternal Lancers tournament. So make sure you cook something up. Now, what? I don't even know what we're gonna see with Eternal. I'm like thinking of like every Eternal deck that like card that's like ever been like existed, and there's just too many options out there. I don't even know how I'm gonna bring anything. But now we're talking in terms of standard format. Like we don't know if any nerfs are gonna come in the future, right? When standard eventually comes back around, and we're like, okay, we're back here. Is it still the same meta as before? Has anything new come out? Have we seen any nerfs? Because we already see that Samira has gotten nerfed, and that has potentially maybe scared players away from it. Like, oh, I got hit with the nerf. I'm not sure if I really, want to really be playing that anymore. Mind you, I think she's still a strong card. I think it's still probably worth playing Samira in some way, shape, or form. And I'm really wondering, though, if in a tournament lineup, if now rather the go-to ban being Fizz Samira, it's actually Karma set. Because I've seen some decks where it's when you put that deck in a master's hands, they just pilot it with impeccable skill, and it's a tough matchup. It's a tough matchup to do, even when you're playing on the the paper statistically, the good side of the matchup.
Yeah, I think Eternal we might see a return to people bringing up decks that were meta just before Eternal became a thing, before rotation came through. So I'm thinking specifically we'll see a lot of TF Nami or TF Swain come back. I think we'll see Jace Lux come back. I think we'll probably even I mean, I know that I will personally be bringing back Talia Ziggs to the ladder because I miss Ziggs and I miss Preservarium and all of that. So I think we're going to be seeing at first a lot of these decks that prior to rotation were very much a thing, and then gradually we'll reintroduce some of these new champions into the card pool. Maybe TF doesn't even go, or Nami doesn't go with TF or something, like we throw Jack in there somewhere, right? Like, because we have a little bit of the mana refill, and then some of those new cards from standard that can then be matched with some of the other cards that have been rotated out into Eternal. So a lot of opportunities, a lot of chances to go into things. That's how I think things are going to go initially. But we're going to find some of the stronger combos, of course, as the weeks go by. And it'll be exciting to see, because I feel like since that is a rediscovery of new things and trying to combine things from standard, each new tournament that we have from here out is going to be a totally fresh experience. At least that's what I believe to see.
Yeah, I think so. There's too many options. There's so many ways you can go about it, and anyone can just basically make a flavor of their own. Now, I want to point out, Mastering Runeterra ended up actually coming out with their Eternal meta list, kind of like getting those stats. So here's the top 5 so far. At the very tippity top, Draven Scion. That's at the tip of the top, which makes sense. Draven did get a buff. Draven Scion was a really strong deck when that the Scion package came out, followed by Annie Jhin. We know what that was like during Eternal, before the rotation. That's a really fast deck.
I mean, you're getting Decimate back.
Exactly. Set Trundle, which is one of my predictions that I think is going to be a really top tier deck, especially with the interaction with Ice Pillar and Set. And you can finally run the card that you mentioned, which is what was it called again? Yeah, Old Timer, who is possibly lore wise, possibly Set's father. We don't know. It's kind of like implied,
very heavily implied. Yeah.
And then we have the 4th and 5th deck, Bo Shurima. Do you want to take a guess what variants?
I'm gonna guess Action with Varus, and then the other one is Sundisk coming back with Xerath.
50-50. Number 5 is Xerath with Azir. We already know that's coming back. I personally missed it. I really like Xerath Azir. I like that version of Mono Shurima. And then number 4 is Azir Aurelia. That is shaking up, and it just
that disappoints me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, listen, people have a love for this deck. We saw that when rotation was coming, it was just spammed. Everyone was just getting their last hurrah with Azir Aurelia. It's a really fast deck, and it can be incredibly impressive when you get the right cards. At some point, something's gonna kill it. We're gonna see what it is, but I don't know. We're gonna see. I'm really interested to see everything. I know with this Draven buff, it being a 3/3, that's gonna be interesting. But I think it makes sense, right? There's so many answers now in the game. A 3/3 isn't, especially in the Eternal format, isn't that difficult to deal with anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you consider removal across all of the different regions. You have proximity puff cap. You have Lord Broadbane is a thing now.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're losing before Lord Broadbane can come down. You then have things like Rite of the Arcane is coming back because Xerath is rotated back into Eternal, so that can remove Draven reliably, and you don't really have the defensive options for that. You have Prize Fight, even like Prize Fight's a card that you can then use to like knock Draven down to 1 HP, and then you have Pokey Stick on top of that, so you can combine Prize Fight and Pokey Stick. So there's a whole ton of spells that I think that are so accessible inside of Eternal now, combined with some of the stuff that we see in Standard that I'm just off the top of my head I can think of that can deal with Draven more reliably. That,
I'm happy to get Vile Feast back.
Depends on it, but
that's what I miss. I miss my Vile Feast.
Yeah.
Oh man, the amount of games the Vile Feast is just.
There's I think We the Peoples is finally getting back to organizing tournaments again on the 4th of June. So it'll be not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after is when his will be hosted. And it'll be Eternal format, and I am so sorely tempted to bring a mill deck to this thing.
Not a mill deck. You're gonna bring a mill deck?
I'm gonna bring a mill deck.
We get a Loop Travelers back. Oh my gosh, we get a Loop Travelers back. Oh my gosh, there's so many cards we're gonna have to. I feel like at this point in Eternal, you just can't even you just need to play. Like, there's no point in trying to think of what card you have to play around because it's quite literally all of them.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, this wasn't in Standard before, but hey, it's back here. Oh, you're combining with that. I think that's like going to be the first impression that I have for at least the first few days of playing Eternal Ranked is like, oh right, that was a card. I forgot about that.
Absolutely.
And then being able to then combine it with the new stuff is going to be like, oh yeah, I never thought of like how powerful that combo could really be. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm willing to be a talking spectator, as is what a caster is for the next tournament. I'm excited for this.
Listen, I am too. All right, y'all. We have reached the very end of Lance's Legends of Runeterra tournament. This is a format. The standard was the standard format number 6. The next one again is going to be June 1st. Deck lock is at 6:30. The tournament begins at 7:30, and then stream begins around 8:30. Bring your Eternal decks. I want to bring whatever you want. I don't care what. Bring it all. Challenge yourselves to really get into some deck building. Bring something no one's ever seen before. Kai, I want to thank you so much for joining us on this casting.
Of course.
As always, missed you. You've been away for I believe like maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It's been a hot minute. Glad to have you back on. Tune in next time, folks. This is IDCxElite signing out.
Have a night, fellas. It's just SojournerKai saying Sojourner goodbye for this Lance tournament.
That's a Sojourner goodbye.
Yeah. That's all.